Chapter 950. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. Under the bright moonlight, a black awning boat was docked beside a rock in a canyon. The towering cliffs of the canyon blocked the boundless night sky. Even the surface of the water did not reflect the slightest bit of light. At a glance, it was like a bottomless black pool. Xianyuanqi sat alone on the deck, holding the wolf-tooth jade pendant that he had taken off from his neck. Liaochen walked out from the canopy and sat down beside his father. He looked at his father and said, "Father, are you still thinking about the heaven splitter?" Xianyuanqi sighed. "I didn't expect that I would meet the sky splitter on my trip to the sword hut." Liaochen said, "I met him once in Chengdu. His name is Long Yi. He is a friend of Ahing and Jiaojiao. I have not fought with him, nor have I spoken to him. Is his martial arts still as powerful as 20 years ago?" Xianyuanqi said, "He's much more powerful than 20 years ago." Liaochen looked at him worriedly. "Father, are you hurt?" Xianyuanqi puffed up his chest. "Me too. I'm very powerful." Liaochen, "How is Rongyu?" Xianyuanqi asked. Liaochen said, "He's really lucky. Even after taking Long Yi's palm, he's still half dead." This time, encountering Long Yi was truly unexpected. Long Yi seemed to be chasing after the people of Sword Hut. Rongyu was young noble Mingyu. Although he had never seen Long Yi, he had the profound moon sword on his body and used the moves of Sword Hut. His father promptly intervened and saved Rongyu from the hands of Long Yi. Long Yi was enraged and fiercely fought with his father, but halfway through, Long Yi stopped. Why did he suddenly stop? Liaochen had been too far away to see what had happened. Because of this, Xianyuanqi pointed at the jade pendant in his hand. "This?" Liaochen didn't understand. Xianyuanqi said, 21 years ago, he was ordered by the Sword Hut to hunt down and kill the Lord of Shadows. At that time, he already had the upper hand. Just like today, he suddenly stopped. In the past, I didn't understand. Now that I think about it, it's probably because of this Wolf Fang jade pendant. Father said that this was a gift from the Lord of Shadows, Liaochen said. Xianyuanqi said, "That's right. She gave it to me on my birthday. She first got to know eldest brother, and they fought together. Later on, she got to know me. She was closer to eldest brother." Liaochen, "Why do I feel like you sound a little jealous?" Xianyuanqi said proudly, "But big brother, there is no such thing." Liaochen, "You're showing off now?" Liaochen returned to the topic at hand. "But why didn't Long Yi kill father after seeing it? Could it be that Long Yi knew it? You know the first Lord of Shadows?" Regarding this point, Xianyuanqi was also not very sure. However, Long Yi had left without saying anything. Xianyuanqi had no choice but to go to Sword Hut Island to find the answer. Long Yi had snatched away the profound moon sword, but the mechanism to enter the island had already been destroyed by Long Yi, so he didn't have to worry about not being able to enter the island. The next day, they arrived at the Sword Hut Island. The island was littered with corpses, and the air was filled with the stench of decay and dried blood. Rongyu saw the corpse wearing the sect master's robe, and rushed over to call him father. Only then did she realize that it wasn't her father. Liaochen held his breath. "You can recognize him?" Rongyu said, "Although his appearance is rotten, my father isn't that short." Liaochen sneered. "It seems that your father escaped." Xianyuanqi's goal was to find the truth of the matter. He searched the entire island, and finally found a secret room in the sect master's study with the help of Rongyu. "I've never been to this secret room. Father didn't allow me to enter his study," Rongyu said. "Let's go in and take a look," Liaochen said. There were some strange pills in the secret room, as well as a large number of things that Rongyu had never seen before. Liaochen opened the box and took out a rusty weapon. "It's a gun." "Strange, the gun was made by the Lord of Shadows. Why does the Sword Hut Island have it?" The three continued to search. Other than the gun, they also found many things that only the Shadow Division had. Liaochen frowned. "Did this guy steal from the Shadow Division?" Xianyuanqi said, "It's possible." In those years, all the big branches of the Shadow Division were destroyed by the Sword Hut. The things inside were also gone. Liao Chen carelessly touched a switch, and a brocade box popped out from the wall. Liao Chen opened the box and took out a yellowed book. There is a notebook here. Xianyuan Qi read the notebook and suddenly realized. Shi Tian actually came from the Dark Knight Island. He is the child of the first island master. In the conference hall of the Hidden Sword Villa, Long Yi and Sect Master Rong were fighting. Sect Master Rong coldly snorted and said, "Your martial arts were taught by me. Do you think that with the mysterious moon sword, you are my opponent?" Mysterious moon sword? Was it in the hands of Long Yi? Gu Jiao woke up after entering the conference hall, so she didn't see the sword in the hands of Long Yi. A doubt flashed in her heart. The mysterious moon sword disappeared together with the sect master's son. Since the sect master recognized this sword, he unexpectedly didn't ask about the situation of his son. It seemed that the sect master of the Sword Hut didn't have any feelings for his son. Thinking about it, if he had feelings, he wouldn't have allowed his son to suffer the persecution of his legal mother. The battle between Long Yi and him was very fierce. From time to time, the sound of tables and chairs being broken could be heard from the conference hall. Since Sect Master Rong had Li Jiangping as a spy, then he should have obtained a lot of purple grass fruits from the Dark Knight Island. She didn't know whether Long Yi would suffer or not. Sect Master Rong slashed out an ice-cold sword chi to block Long Yi's attack. Then he patted Long Yi's shoulder. Long Yi was sent flying by his powerful shockwave, and hit the wall behind him, then fell on the table and chair, breaking into pieces of wood. He used his sword to support his body and attacked Sect Master Rong. But before he could make a move, he was sent flying again by Sect Master Rong. This time, even the sword in his hand was sent flying. Long Yi felt a pain in his chest, and a trace of scarlet blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Sect Master Rong sent out a third palm, and completely injured Long Yi's dantian. Long Yi spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body slightly spasmed. Sect Master Rong walked towards Long Yi step by step. Looking down at him, he said coldly, "Shi Tian, why are you so stubborn? Why do you have to go against me? Am I not good to you? Or did you recover your memory?" Recover? Could it be that Long Yi had lost his memory more than once? And from his tone, Long Yi's memory loss seemed to be related to him. 21 years ago, Long Yi went to assassinate the Master of Shadows, Xianyuan Qi. As a result, Long Yi took the initiative to give up the mission. After that, Long Yi left. After that, Long Yi lost his memory and entered the Princess Mansion. That memory loss was caused by Sect Master Rong. Why did Sect Master Rong erase Long Yi's memory? What exactly did Long Yi remember? Gu Jiao had countless doubts in her heart. She wanted to help Long Yi, but the knockout drug in her body had taken effect. This wasn't an ordinary knockout drug. This black-robed man was also not an ordinary swordsman. Sect Master Rong looked at Long Yi, who was seriously injured and vomiting blood. "Do you know why I asked you to assassinate Xianyuan Qi? I actually wanted to lure the first Master of Shadows out. I always felt that she was inseparable from the Dark Knight Island. If the thing I wanted wasn't on the Dark Knight Island, then it must be in her hands. But now it seems that a girl got her things. I've already caught that girl, so it doesn't matter if she appears or not. As for you, I didn't want to kill you, but you've ruined my plans again and again. Don't blame me for not caring about our master and disciple relationship." He raised the long sword in his hand and suddenly stabbed towards Long Yi's heart. Xiao. Long Yi grabbed the long sword with his bare hands. The sharp blade of the sword cut open the palm of Long Yi, and warm blood flowed out. Sect Master Rong was shocked. He obviously didn't expect that Long Yi, who was on the verge of death, could still have such strength. Long Yi's aura was soaring. With a flip of his hand, he broke Sect Leader Rong's long sword. Then, with a speed as fast as lightning, he jumped up and stabbed the broken sword into Sect Leader Rong's chest without hesitation. Sect Master Rong was stunned. How could? Long Yi looked at him coldly. "You shouldn't. Take me away from him." After saying that, he suddenly stabbed the sword into Sect Master Rong's chest. The mask on Sect Master Rong's face cracked, and he fell to the ground with a cracked expression. Long Yi slapped with his big palm, and a powerful internal force shook the broken sword on the ground and stabbed it into Sect Master Rong's chest. After being stabbed twice in a row, even if he ate purple grass fruit, he couldn't take it anymore. Sect Master Rong violently vomited blood. In a battle between experts, every move was a matter of life and death. It wasn't strange to lose quickly, but it shouldn't have been him who lost. His martial arts were above Shirtian, and Shirtian didn't lose control. How could he explode with such terrifying power? Long Yi waved his big palm, and the mystic moon sword that was sent flying returned to his hand. He mercilessly stabbed the sword for the third time. Sect Master Rong's body stiffened, and he didn't have any strength left to fight back. Long Yi raised his sword and planned to dig out his heart with the fourth stab. But at that moment, something unexpected happened. The entire conference hall suddenly shook as if there was an earthquake. Long Yi's body swayed, and behind the wooden wall, Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao's chairs were thrown forward. Gu Jiao gritted her teeth and defeated the feeling of weakness in her body. She hugged Xiao Heng. The two of them rolled on the ground twice before coming to a stop. That black-robed man lost his balance and knocked into the wooden wall behind him. The wooden wall collapsed, and he rolled onto the floor of the conference hall. He looked at Sect Master Rong, who was lying in a pool of blood, and his expression changed. He quickly grabbed him and left. The shaking continued. Long Yi saw Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao behind the conference hall, and he flew up. He couldn't hold the sword with the two of them. He threw away the mystic moon sword and rushed out with Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao, one in each hand. Unexpectedly, the floor suddenly cracked and the three of them fell. In a dark tunnel, Gu Yan and Gu Chengfeng were swaying left and right. Gu Chengfeng's head heavily knocked against the wall. Gu Yan benefited from watching the wrestling Little Dumpling in Jing Kong, and learned a perfect wrestling technique. He didn't hurt. What's the situation? Did the earth dragon turn over? Gu Chengfeng asked frantically. Gu Yan didn't speak. He hugged his head and chest, and maintained a self-protecting posture. Finally, the shaking stopped. Gu Chengfeng supported himself against the wall, and stood up. At this moment, the two of them were already disheveled. He was more miserable and didn't know where his crown was. Are you okay? He went to help Gu Yan. I'm fine. Gu Yan grabbed his hand and stood up. He looked around and asked, where are we? Gu Chengfeng held his dizzy head and panted while touching his chest. I'm not sure. Do you have a match on you? Mine seems to have fallen off. Gu Yan took out a match from his chest. Yes. Gu Chengfeng took it and blew on the match. He walked out of the tunnel step by step with the help of the burning fire. After they fell from the courtyard of the small bamboo house, they entered a strange passageway. They followed the passageway and kept walking forward, and for some reason the accident just now happened. He almost thought that the tunnel was going to collapse. Where is this? There are so many bloodstains on the ground. Gu Chengfeng entered the meeting hall. He squatted down and touched the bloodstains with his fingertips. It's fresh. There was a fight here. He looked around and found a peacock feather sword shining with cold light in the ruins. He picked up the sword and looked at it carefully. He exclaimed, wow, a black iron sword. It's mine. Gu Yan found a mask on the side. Gu Yan picked up the mask and smelled it. He said, it smells like my sister's body. My sister came here before. In the dark secret room, Long Yi used his body as a shield to catch Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng. The two hurriedly stood up. Gu Jiao felt Long Yi's pulse and Xiao Heng blew on the match. Are you all okay? He asked. Gu Jiao said, I'm fine. Long Yi is injured. Xiao Heng looked at the pale Long Yi and asked, is it serious? Gu Jiao pulled back her hand. It's serious. But his body is special. It shouldn't be life-threatening. She said and felt for the first aid kit. The first aid kit fell off. The mask also fell off. The mask was made by Sheng Guanqing. Manager Zheng suddenly came to the residence and said something happened to Wang Guogong. She stuffed the mask into the first aid kit. Xiao Heng looked around. There's a passage in front. Let's leave here first. Gu Jiao nodded her head and helped Long Yi up together with Xiao Heng. Soon after, she sighed with emotion and said, a small hidden sword villa actually built a secret passage. It truly doesn't reveal the mountain nor the water. Xiao Heng frowned and looked at the cold walls. He felt that this place was very dangerous. Let's go. Gu Jiao suddenly looked at Long Yi's handsome face and said, That's right, Long Yi. Who was that man wearing a black robe just now? Gu Master. Long Yi said. Gu Jiao smiled and her eyes shone. You really know how to talk. Long Yi. In another passage, Gu Yan carefully searched for traces of Gu Jiao. He could not see any clues, but based on the senses of the twins, he felt that she should be nearby. Should we call out? Gu Yan turned around and asked Gu Qingfeng, but he was frightened by a terrifying bronze mask with fangs. Ah, what are you doing? Wearing a mask, Gu Qingfeng grinned and said, Are you scared? Gu Yan was still in shock. He rubbed his wildly beating heart and said angrily, Childish. You're not allowed to walk behind me. Gu Qingfeng snorted. I don't have the twins' connection with your sister. How would I know where to go? Gu Yan said angrily, Go forward. Gu Qingfeng held the mask on his face and touched the peacock feather dark iron treasure sword on his waist. He said to Gu Yan, Give me the match. Gu Yan gave it to him coldly. He walked forward with his head held high. You're so timid. I told you not to follow me. You and your sister came from the same mother's womb. Why are your temperaments so different? Oh, that's right. She's not you, cough cough. I mean, she didn't grow up with you. Hey, I said so much. You should at least say something. Gu Qingfeng turned around in puzzlement, but Gu Yan's figure was nowhere to be seen. Gu Yan. His expression changed and he walked back. Just as he turned a corner, a black shadow came up to him and knocked him out. Long Yi, are Gu masters powerful? In the passage, Gu Jiao continued the topic. Long Yi thought for a while and said seriously, They're not powerful in fighting. They're powerful in using Gu. Gu masters raised Gu. Generally speaking, their bodies were very weak. They were good at using Gu to increase their strength. They gave people the impression that they were experts, but it was actually the effect of Gu. Gu Jiao understood. So if that guy fought in close combat, he had no chance of winning. Long Yi paused and said with lowered eyes, But Gu masters can control people. Gu Jiao asked, Your memory was erased by that Gu master? Long Yi, yes. Not only did he erase his memory, he also turned him into a tool to kill people. He killed people he shouldn't have killed and destroyed things he should have protected. There's someone, Xiao Heng said. At the end of the passage, a stone door slowly opened. There was a weak light coming out from inside. Long Yi walked forward and protected the two behind him. He walked towards the stone door with a cold gaze. When he reached the door, he found that it was a spacious secret room. There was someone waiting in the secret room for a long time. Sect leader Rong was sitting on a chair. He was playing with a bronze Fong mask in his hand. Standing beside him was the black-robed Gu master, as well as Gu Yan and Gu Qingfeng who were in the Gu master's hands. Sect leader Rong's weapon had already been taken away. His wound looked simple, but it was still bleeding. He was very weak and would die if he didn't undergo surgery. Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng walked out from behind Long Yi. The two looked at the unconscious Gu Qingfeng and Gu Yan, then looked at the Gu master and sect leader Rong. What do you want? Xiao Heng asked. Sect leader Rong was weak, but his aura was not weak. He looked at Xiao Heng and said, You are Great Yan's imperial grandson? I have seen your portrait. I know you're in Shengguanqing's background. I also know that Shirtian had always been by your side all these years when he was missing. Back then, I was careless and let you take advantage of me. Xiao Heng said seriously. 21 years ago, Long Yi gave up on the mission to assassinate Xian Yuanqi. After that, Long Yi lost his memory. Was it your doing? Sect leader Rong laughed mockingly. He dared to betray me, of course he had to pay the price. Unfortunately, even though his memory was erased, he still ran away. Long Yi must have used his obsession to escape from sect leader Rong, but he didn't expect to enter the princess residence by accident. Xiao Heng looked at sect leader Rong. Why did you do this? Sect leader Rong said. I did it for his own good. What is there to be unhappy about being the Sword Hut's direct disciple? All right, let's not talk about the past. As he spoke, he glanced at Gu Qingfeng and smiled faintly. These two are your friends, right? If you want to save him, Ask this girl to hand over the elixir of immortality. Xiao Heng frowned. What immortality medicine? Sect leader Rong said sternly. The immortality medicine. Gu Jiao was dumbfounded. Do I have an elixir of immortality? Why don't I know about it? Sect leader Rong was dying. If he didn't get the immortality medicine soon, he would die. His expression sank. I will say it one last time. Hand over the immortality medicine. Otherwise, I will make all of you accompany me in death. Gu Jiao said seriously. I really don't have the immortality medicine. If I did, I would have eaten it already. Sect leader Rong was furious. You? Xiao Heng asked Gu Jiao softly. Does he think you have the immortality medicine in your medicine box? Gu Jiao said. But I don't have it in my medicine box. She looked at sect leader Rong. Who told you there was the immortality medicine in your medicine box? Sect leader Rong used his inner strength to protect his heart, but it was useless. His life was rapidly slipping away. He became anxious. I saw it with my own eyes. It must be in your medicine box. Take it out. Take it out. This person was crazy. He was like those emperors who were obsessed with refining pills to obtain immortality. But how could there be immortality in this world? Where was the immortality medicine? Sect leader Rong lost his patience and said to the Gu master, Kill him. Gu Jiao stretched out her hand. Okay, I will give it to you. Xiao Heng immediately got into character, grabbing her wrist and turning around, using his body to block her unsightly acting. You are crazy. You only have one. If you give it to him, what will happen to you? His acting had reached perfection. In Gu Jiao's previous life, he would have been an Oscar winner. No one doubted that he was telling the truth. Gu Jiao sighed with a pained expression. But I can't let him kill my brother in Gu Chengfeng. I don't have the elixir of immortality. At most, I'll be like you guys. There's nothing bad about being born, old, sick, and dead. Xiao Heng said solemnly. Jiao Jiao. Say no more. Gu Jiao raised her other hand and made a stop gesture, taking out a small porcelain bottle from her bosom. Xiao Heng snatched the bottle and turned to look at sect leader Rong. His eyes were filled with unwillingness, anger, helplessness, and complex emotions. Hand over the person and hand over the medicine. I will count to 3, you push the person over and I will throw the medicine to you. Sect leader Rong's eyes flashed with greed. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Xiao Heng had just finished speaking when the Gu master pushed the person over. And Xiao Heng also threw the medicine out. Long Yi flew up and caught Gu Chengfeng, while Gu Jiao also walked up and caught Gu Yan. At this moment, the originally unconscious Gu Yan suddenly opened his eyes and took out the peacock feather sword on his back. His cold eyes flashed and the sword pierced someone's heart. The Gu master lowered his head and looked at the mystic moon sword that had pierced through his chest. He turned around in disbelief. You. Gu Yan wiped away the blood that had splashed on his face, his eyes clear. You want me to hurt my sister? Dream on. The Gu master fell into a pool of blood. Sect leader Rong's large palm sucked, and the medicine bottle flew into his hand. Gu Yan lost all strength and fell on his butt. Gu Jiao knelt on one knee and hugged him. Yan. Gu Yan trembled as he took out a small porcelain bottle from his bosom and said in a trembling voice. Fortunately, Master's wife gave me the poison, sister. Stay away from me. I still want to kill you. Long Yi pulled out the sword on the Gu master's back and chopped off his head. Gu Yan's vision turned black and he fainted in Gu Jiao's bosom. When the Gu master died, the Gu poison was naturally removed. The reason why he fainted was because he had taken the poison refined by Master's wife to resist the Gu poison. Gu Jiao hugged him tightly in her bosom, her face close to his ice-cold face as she whispered, Silly brother. On the other side, sect leader Rong, who had obtained the pill, laughed crazily. I have the elixir of immortality. I won't die. I won't. With a loud rumble, the entire secret room started shaking again. Sand fell from the cracks between the roof and walls, and the dust in the secret room flew into the air. Xiao Heng looked around and said with a serious gaze, It seems like someone has activated the underground mechanism. This place is going to collapse. Let's leave quickly. He held Gu Jiao's hand. Long Yi held one on each side, with Gu Chengfeng on his left and Gu Yan on his right, covering their retreat. Right at this moment, the secret room's stone door fell. Long Yi saw that the situation was bad and threw out Gu Chengfeng and Gu Yan, then sent out Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng with 2 palms. The stone door fell very quickly, and after doing all this, he could not rush out in time. Gu Jiao shouted, "Long Yi!" Seeing that the secret room was about to close completely, a small medicine box appeared under the heavy stone door with a click, firmly holding it back. Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng lay down and looked through the gap of the stone door. Xiao Heng said, "Long Yi, come quickly." Long Yi rolled on the ground and left the secret room through the gap of less than a foot. Sect leader Rong had just taken the elixir of immortality. He could live forever like the first island lord of Dark Knight Island, but he could not waste the rest of his life here. He had to go out and rebuild the sword hut. He entered the gap under the stone door. The small medicine box did not move. But just as sect leader Rong was halfway up, something unexpected happened. The medicine chest suddenly disappeared, and the heavy stone door fell down heavily. No, sect leader Rong was crushed into 2 under the stone door. He opened his eyes and saw the small medicine box in front of him. He spat out blood and stretched out his hand. With the medicine. I can live. Give me the medicine." But until he died, he did not touch the box that was within reach. August, the golden autumn season. Gu Jiao and Long Yi were recuperating in the princess residence. Little Jiao's wings were wrapped in gauze and he valiantly hid in the courtyard, showing off his injuries to his new little brothers. Gu Yan was fine. He had already gone to school with Gu Xiaoshan. Xiao Heng came out of Long Yi's room with an empty bowl in his hand. Gu Jiao looked at the bowl and said, "You drank it all? So obedient." Xiao Heng smiled and took out a box of charcoal. "I said you promised him." Gu Jiao's face darkened. At the end of August, Xian Yuanqi returned. Chang Kuan and Yi Qing also came with him to Zhao country. Gu Jiao thought Chang Kuan came to find Chang Jing, but who would have thought that was not the case? He came to see Long Yi. In the courtyard, Gu Jiao was bitterly arguing with Long Yi. Chang Kuan walked over. He was very excited. He wanted to approach Long Yi, but he was afraid to startle Long Yi. He stood not far away and looked at Long Yi without blinking. He's that child? Even his eyes were red. Chang Jing looked at her father in confusion. Xiao Heng said, "If you are talking about the child abducted by the Sword Hut sect leader, yes." Long Yi was abducted by the Sword Hut sect leader when he was 5 years old. The Sword Hut sect leader let a Gu master erase his memory and cultivated him into a killing tool. Xiao Heng looked at Long Yi, who was playing with Gu Jiao with a lame arm, and said to Chang Kuan, "Long Yi was still young when he left. He only remembers that he came from Dark Knight Island, and his father was the island master. He doesn't know anything else. But I heard from Chang Jing that you didn't give birth to a son as old as Long Yi." Chang Kuan smiled bitterly. "The island master he is talking about is not me, but the first island master. He is the child of the first island master, not the island master himself. He should have been brought back from outside." "What do you mean by should have been?" Xiao Heng asked. Chang Kuan said, "The first island master was a strange person. He had many secrets that ordinary people could not understand. This child is one of them. I always feel that he is not an ordinary child." Long Yi was indeed not an ordinary person. Chang Kuan sighed. "Before the island master died, he entrusted this child to me and asked me to take good care of him. I didn't expect that the people of Sword Hut would abduct him and feed him purple grass poison, turning him into a death warrior. I am ashamed to face the island master." After the child disappeared, he also looked for him carefully. But he couldn't find him, so he thought he was already dead. Xiao Heng asked, "Does your island master have a medicine chest?" Chang Kuan was surprised. "Yes, how did you know?" After Gu Jiao finished today's task, Chang Kuan went to find Long Yi. He was not sure if Long Yi still remembered him. Gu Jiao and Xian Yuanqi went to the study room. Xian Yuanqi handed a brocade box to Gu Jiao. "I went to Sword Hut Island first and found that Long Yi was related to Dark Knight Island. Thus, I went to Dark Knight Island again. This is the personal record of the Sword Hut sect master." Gu Jiao first looked at sect master Rong's personal record. As it turned out, when he was 8 years old, he followed his father out of the island. His senior brother was injured and fortunately, a godly doctor came to his rescue. There were all kinds of strange knives and medicines in the medicine chest of the godly doctor. When he was 20 years old, he met the same godly doctor again. The godly doctor's appearance did not change. When he was 30 years old, it was the same. He felt that the godly doctor must have taken the elixir of immortality, and that elixir was hidden in his medicine chest. He followed the godly doctor to Dark Knight Island, and found that he was the island master of Dark Knight Island. Then he found a portrait in the study room of the godly doctor. This is the portrait of the first Dark Shadow Master. Xian Yuanqi said and took out the portrait from his bosom. He handed it to Gu Jiao with both hands. This was an extremely respectful gesture. An elder would not pass something to a younger generation like this. Gu Jiao was thinking about something, and did not pay attention to this detail. But when she took the portrait, her expression suddenly froze. This was not a portrait. It was a photo of her previous life. Gu Jiao went to see Chang Kuan and asked him for the portrait of the first Dark Shadow Master. Chang Kuan took out an old portrait. This is the first time I saw him. I was afraid that I would forget one day, so I drew it early. Gu Jiao saw a tall man wearing military boots and a coat. He was tall and had a cold expression. Godfather. It turned out that the person sect leader Rong saw was her godfather. His appearance did not change, not because he took the elixir of immortality, but because he transmigrated here again and again. Gu Jiao held the portrait tightly. Where did he go? Chang Kuan said sadly he died. Gu Jiao's eyes trembled. What did you say? Chang Kuan sighed. Every time he came here he would plant a batch of purple grass. But for some reason, the first batch of purple grass could not be planted. Then he passed away. Before he died, he asked me to bury him under the purple grass. Don't you think it's strange? The next year, a large amount of purple grass grew at the place he was buried. Gu Jiao looked at the portrait in a daze. Tears suddenly fell down. At night, Yi Qing came to Gu Jiao's room. Gu Jiao sat quietly in front of the window. Yi Qing opened his mouth and said softly, Now. What should I call you? Miss Gu, young commander, Mrs. Xiao, or? Gu Jiao said. You can call me anything. Your master. Yi Qing came in front of her, looked down, took a deep breath, suppressed the choking in his throat, and said in a normal tone, My master went to travel the world. Before he left, he went to see me at the Dark Knight Island. He had something for me to give to you. Gu Jiao took the box and opened it. It was the 3 clay figurines sitting under the peach tree, and the portrait of the general who did not have a face. Now the face had been added by the state preceptor. It was her face from her previous life. The Lord of Shadows was her, and she was the Lord of Shadows. Yi Qing turned and raised his hand, wiped the tears in his eyes without leaving a trace, and said calmly, Master has a story, and I must tell it to you. Gu Jiao said, Say it. Yi Qing considered the words and slowly opened his mouth. Once upon a time, there was a poor sorcerer. Because he offended the son of a big family, he was beaten and lived on the streets. When he was about to die, a fairy-like woman saved him. The woman said, You look like an old friend of mine. Because of a similar face, the woman treated him, took him in, taught him everything, and also introduced him to the son of the Xianyuan family. He thought that the old friend must be very important to her. He wanted to pretend to be that person, but he didn't do it in the end. The luckiest thing in his life was to meet her. The last thing he regretted was that divination. It's a long way to the back of the mountain, so there's no need to look for him. Therefore, the state preceptor was not a transmigrator. He just knew her. The state preceptor was not the godfather. He just had a face similar to the godfather. The real godfather had been buried under the purple grass on the Dark Knight Island. When Xiao Heng came to the room, Yi Qing had already left. Gu Jiao was burning paper money. There were 2 braziers. Xiao Heng looked at her with distress and said, One is for the first lord of the Dark Knight Island, and the other is, Gu Jiao whispered, an old friend. The Dark Knight Island was farther than the Yin Kingdom. At this time, they would encounter the extreme weather of the ice field. Chang Kuan and Chang Jing temporarily lived in the Lord Protector's mansion. This was what Gu Jiao wanted. She also planned to go to the Dark Night Island. After the spring, she should give birth. At that time, she would go back with Chang Kuan and Chang Jing. In October, Shang Guanqing returned to the Yin Kingdom. In the 12th month of the same year, Grand Secretary Yuan caught a cold, and his health was not as good as before. Grand Secretary Yuan felt powerless and submitted a resignation letter to the emperor. The emperor urged him to stay several times, and it was not until February of the next year that Grand Secretary Yuan's resignation was approved. Xiao Heng succeeded the position of Grand Secretary. At this point, the youngest Grand Secretary in the history of the 6 countries took office. On the first day of Grand Secretary Zhao's appointment, Gu Jiao had a fit. A certain Grand Secretary had not sat down for long, and in front of all the subordinates who wanted to greet him, he staggered and fell down. His official hat was crooked. The cabinet officials had never seen Grand Secretary Xiao so agitated. They were all stunned. Xiao Heng did not care about his image. Without saying anything, he rode back to the mansion. Gu Jiao was pregnant with twins. Her belly was bigger than that of other pregnant women, and her delivery date was half a month earlier. She had a fit when she was strolling in the garden with Princess Xinyang. She was still calm. Princess Xinyang was not calm. Seeing that Gu Jiao could walk back by herself, she almost doubted life. Xiaoji, haha, when I saw you calmly walk back to the delivery room, I also doubted life. Originally, there was one fetus in the womb, but today, both babies' positions were off. The midwife and nurse were shocked. Generally speaking, after a fetus entered the womb, its position would not change again. So what was going on? Could it be that this one had been kicked to the side by the other? The midwife took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Don't panic, don't panic. If the fetus position is off, we'll just turn it into a regular one. Which one should we turn first? She rubbed Gu Jiao's belly. This one is closer. Just as she finished speaking and was about to use force, the baby on the other side kicked Gu Jiao's belly and shook his little feet against Gu Jiao's belly. The midwife was stunned again. What's going on now? The nurse stared blankly and said in embarrassment, He might mean he wants to come out first. In the evening, a loud cry pierced through the silent sky. The little daughter of the Grand Secretary was born. 15 minutes later, the little son of the Grand Secretary was also born. Dragons and phoenixes were auspicious, and the light from the horizon enveloped the entire mansion. All the people in the capital witnessed this celestial phenomenon, and secretly thought that it was an auspicious sign from the heavens. Xiao Heng did not care about the 2 little guys and immediately went to the delivery room. The little guys who were being carried by the midwife and nurse seemed to be a little aggrieved, as if they were complaining that their birth father had not hugged them yet. Xiao Heng went to the bedside without asking. Gu Jiao had just given birth, so she was sleepy and weak. She did not even have the strength to speak. In a daze, she saw a tall figure walking over from the light. He reached out his cold and slender hand and touched her forehead. That was the most beautiful hand she had ever seen. End of text. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that you can't find online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1045577737. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikaga mobile reading website. Chapter 951. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. The news of the Grand Secretary's family receiving a pair of twins quickly spread throughout the capital. The common people all said that the multicolored light that day was an auspicious sign for the twins. When the 2 of them grew up, they would definitely be elegant young masters and graceful ladies. They were definitely not some little demon king. Gu Jiao didn't have much milk, and the two little guys refused to drink their wet nurse's milk. Therefore, the small medicine box took on the responsibility of a wet nurse. Not only did it produce milk bottles, but it also produced milk powder for the neonatal intensive care unit. After the two little guys gulped down the milk, they lay down beside Gu Jiao and fell asleep sweetly. When Xiao Heng came into the room with a bowl of not too hot, Gu Jiao was staring at the two little guys with her eyes wide open. That little expression of disbelief seemed to be saying, "Are they really my children?" Xiao Heng walked over with a smile and sat down by the bed. "Mother asked the cook to make chicken soup for you. Did you put salt in it?" Gu Jiao asked. Xiao Heng laughed when he heard this. "Yes, you don't need to be breastfed now. You can eat and drink like a normal person." "Oh." Gu Jiao took the bowl and gulped down the steaming bowl of chicken soup. After drinking it, she sighed when she handed the bowl to Xiao Heng. "When you care about someone, you can capture any small detail about them." Xiao Heng asked, "What's wrong? Is there something on your mind?" "Well, not really." Gu Jiao shook her head. After so many days, she had been shocked and digested most of the things that needed to be digested. Occasionally, when she thought about it, she still felt a little emotional. She had actually transmigrated 3 times. Once she was the Lord of Shadows. Twice she was Jing Yinin in this life. But she had almost no memory of the first 2 transmigrations. She must have been affected by the space-time magnetic field when she transmigrated and lost her memory. The small medicine box could carry both a person and a soul. If the body was gone, then only the soul could be transported. The first time she came here, she had left a set of coordinates in the Grand Preceptor Hall. It was the operating theater. Because of the coordinates, the medicine box was able to bring her brainwaves to this time and space after she died. However, without the purple grass poison, her brainwaves could not merge with other people's bodies. The Godfather knew this, so he planted the purple grass on the Dark Night Island. As for how the Godfather knew that she had left the coordinates in this space-time, perhaps it would forever be a mystery. Xiao Heng looked at her and frowned. "Are you thinking about that Godfather again?" He was very jealous of his Godfather, especially after knowing that the guy had sacrificed so much for Gu Jiao. He deeply felt that the other party had stolen his job. Gu Jiao tilted her head and looked at him. "Is Aheng jealous again?" "Miss, Dukin is here." Yuya reported from outside the door. Xiao Heng coughed lightly. "I didn't." After saying this, he went out and pushed Dukin inside. Dukin had come to see Gu Jiao and the twins. He was distressed that Gu Jiao had to go through the pain of childbirth, but he was also gratified that she had given birth to a pair of twins. The 2 little guys were really too cute. Although they had not yet grown up, their facial features were very similar to their parents. How could they be different? Among the things that the Grand Preceptor had Yi Qing give to Gu Jiao, there were a few handwritten letters. One of the letters mentioned that the Grand Preceptor had told Duke and that Gu Jiao was Jing Yinin. "Father." Gu Jiao called out to him. Duke An's arm that was holding the children froze, as he looked at Gu Jiao in surprise. Gu Jiao curled her lips. "The Grand Preceptor told me." She did not say what exactly was told, but how could someone as smart as Dukin not be able to guess? Dukin never dreamed that he would be able to hear this call of father. He thought that none of them would poke through this layer of window paper. In fact, it didn't matter if he didn't poke through it. He was already content to be able to stay by her side like this. The little guy on the bed suddenly snorted in dissatisfaction, as if complaining that her grandfather had hugged her younger brother for so long and had not hugged her. Dukin looked at the 2 little guys and then looked at Gu Jiao. Endless emotions rolled through his heart. "Can call me again?" he asked nervously and expectantly. Gu Jiao did not hesitate. "Father." Dukin laughed until tears came to his eyes. The twins changed every day. When they were born, they were small like kittens, but by the time they were out of confinement, they were already 2 chubby babies. Princess Xinyang and Shangguan Yen, who was far away in the Yen kingdom, named the 2 little guys. The daughter was called Xiao Yan and the son was called Xiao Kong. Xiao Tsong couldn't beat his sister in the womb, and it was the same after he was born. Xiao Yan could eat more than him, and was fatter than him. As long as the swaddling clothes were loosened, Xiao Yan could kick him to the edge of the cradle with one little foot. Xiao Yin grew too fast, and in the end, she still attracted Gu Jiao's attention. When Xiao Heng returned from court, Gu Jiao was rubbing her chin and looking thoughtfully at the two little guys. "Why are you looking at them like that?" Xiao Heng asked with a smile. Gu Jiao asked in bewilderment. "I fed them the same way. Why did Xiao Yin grow so fast?" Xiao Heng thought for a moment. "Maybe it's because they absorbed it well?" Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. "Is that so?" "Of course not. Xiao Yin grew so fast because every night, someone secretly came over to give her more food. On a moonless and windy night, a ghostly figure flashed into the room with a small milk bottle. Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao were sleeping soundly. The two little guys were lying in their respective cradles, and had also entered the land of dreams. The owner of the figure came to the side of Xiao Yan's cradle, as if no one else was present, and stuffed the pacifier into her mouth. Xiao Yan tasted the fragrance of the milk, and began to eat heartily. Gu Jiao pulled open the curtain and looked at the figure beside the cradle seriously. Long Yi. Long Yi's body stiffened, and he denied in all seriousness. "It's not me." "Gu Jiao." Long Yi was caught red-handed. Gu Jiao confiscated his small milk bottle and took him outside the room. She said with incomparable seriousness, "You're not allowed to do this in the future. Starting tomorrow night, you're not allowed to secretly feed her." What Long Yi heard was, "Lu, starting tomorrow night. Secretly feed her." A few days later, Gu Jiao found that Xiao Yin had grown even better. Originally, she should have taken the little guy to the palace to visit her grandaunt, and Yao Shi after the confinement. However, it rained for several days in a row, and it finally cleared up at the end of March. Gu Jiao took the twins, and went to the Imperial College to pick up little Jing Kong from school. Little Jing Kong had just finished his equestrian archery class, and was sweating profusely. He was 8 years old this year. In the past, he always looked younger than his actual age, but from the beginning of spring this year, he began to grow. His strength had also increased. The teacher said that he was the only one in the elementary school who could draw a bow and arrow. His eyes were less childish and more resolute. "Hello Jiao Jiao Xiao Yin Xiaozong." He walked into the carriage and politely greeted the three people. Although Xiao Yin and Xiaozong were unable to respond to him, Gu Jiao took out a handkerchief and wiped his sweat, saying, "Why are you sweating so much?" It was not even April yet, and the weather was very cool. Little Jing Kong enjoyed Gu Jiao wiping his sweat and answered seriously, "We had equestrian archery class today. Jiao Jiao, I got first place again." Gu Jiao praised, "Jing Kong is really amazing." Little Jing Kong shook his little head. He was a big shot in the Imperial College, but in front of Jiao Jiao, he was still a little cutie. After Gu Jiao finished wiping his sweat, he asked, "Jiao Jiao, can I ride a horse by myself?" He rode a pony in class today, and it was not fun at all. Gu Jiao nodded. "Okay." She also brought a horse for him. Chapter 952. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated faster. Millions of novels were free to read. There were all kinds of novels that couldn't be found on the internet. For little Jing Kong's safety, Gu Jiao still gave the Horse King a children's saddle, but it was not the one with a cute tiger head carved last year. It was a new saddle with sharp lines and a simple design. It looked handsome and cool. Little Jing Kong was riding on the horse's back, and the man and the horse were very handsome. Xiao Heng was on duty in the cabinet. Before he left in the morning, Gu Jiao mentioned to him that he should go to his grandaunt's place after work. The cabinet was different from the Hanlin Academy, and he was no longer a nameless editor of the Hanlin Academy. Every move of the cabinet chief attracted attention, and he couldn't be as casual as before. Gu Jiao didn't pick him up, and went directly to the palace. Renshou Palace was very lively tonight. Empress Xiao, noble consort Zhuang, and Du Xiaoyan were also there. Half a year ago, Du Xiaoyan gave birth to the eldest son for the crown prince. Empress Xiao was very happy and immediately fulfilled her promise. She went to the emperor and asked for the title of crown princess for her. Therefore, the current Du Xiaoyan was the official crown princess. Du Xiaoyan had no ambition and was straightforward. She didn't hide things and was very filial to Empress Xiao, so Empress Xiao was very satisfied with her. Of course, there might be another reason, such as her ability to give birth. She was pregnant again when her eldest son was less than 1 year old. In ancient times, children were more important than everything. Du Xiaoyan, a filial daughter-in-law who gave birth to 2 children every 3 years, was the golden goose of the family. The 3 hostesses of the imperial palace were sitting in the small garden and playing cards. 3 of them needed one, so they called noble consort Zhuang. Noble consort Zhuang didn't inherit her grandaunt's IQ in other aspects, but she was good at playing cards. In comparison, Empress Xiao was simply a gambling addict. She would play 1 round and then play another. After 2 hours, her brain was already in a mess. She was the only one who lost, and the 3 families won. Her grandaunt was very satisfied. The princess and Jing Kong are here. Eunuch Qin's laughter came from the door. Just then, Empress Xiao's eyes lit up. Mother, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I finally won. Jiao Jiao is here. I don't want to play anymore. Empress Dowager Zhuang said in all seriousness. Empress Xiao. The twins were carried by Yuya, and the wet nurse respectively. The 2 of them woke up when they got off the carriage. It was the first time they had gone out so far. The 2 little guys were looking left and right, as if they could really see something. A 40-day-old baby could only see things within half a foot to 1 foot. Du Xiaoyan felt rather awkward when she saw Gu Jiao again. She recalled how she had foolishly pursued Wen Linlang when she was young and ignorant. In the end, she had slept with Wen Linlong's husband and inherited Wen Linlong's status. Why do I feel like I love Gu Jiao was very magnanimous and never mentioned her dark past. Grandaunt, Auntie, Crown Princess, Noble Consort. Gu Jiao greeted the 4 people. Grandaunt, Auntie, Crown Princess, Noble Consort. Little Jing Kong also followed suit and greeted them. Little Jing Kong wasn't the main character today. He was 7 years old and had long retired from acting cute. After greeting the elders, he went to Cunning Palace to find Qin Chiyu. The elders began to admire and play with the twins. That's right, they were admiring and playing with them. The twins were too cute. They were white and tender and smelled like milk. They didn't cry, especially Xiaoyan. She was chubby and had the demeanor of Aunt Xiaoyi back then. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who didn't want to carry the twins, couldn't help but hug them. This proved how popular the twins were. Bring Wuyo here. Empress Xiao said to the palace maid. Wuyo was the eldest son of the crown prince. He was almost 8 months old, and was learning to crawl. It was quite fun. The palace maid brought Qin Wuyo to Renshou Palace and placed him together with the twins. As an 8-month-old baby, Qin Wuyo definitely had the right to look down on his 2 younger siblings. Moreover, he didn't need to be wrapped in swaddling clothes. His hands and feet were very free. When the palace maid brought toys to tease the 3 little guys, Qin Wuyo unceremoniously snatched the toys from the twins. Then Qin Wuyo suffered a tragedy. The palace maid untied the twins' swaddling clothes and changed their diapers. While he was turning around, Xiao Yan's small leg kicked Qin Wuyo to the ground. Xiao Tsong had always been obedient. He was a quiet and pretty boy. However, at this time, he also secretly kicked Qin Wuyo. His kick wasn't as heavy as Xiao Yan's, but it was more painful than Xiao Yan's kick. He could be said to be two-faced. As the golden nugget of the imperial family, Qin Wuyo was beaten up for the first time in his life. He was in pain, scared and aggrieved. He cried out loud, "Aya, what happened to the little master?" The palace maid hurriedly carried the crying Qin Wuyo. The 2 little culprits' expressions and movements were synchronized. They lay motionless on the bed, and even their eyes were staring at the same direction of the roof. They were especially calm. Empress Xiao heard the sound and walked over. She hugged the little guy and said angrily, "Why are you crying again? Look at how obedient your little brother and sister are." Qin Wuyo cried even harder. Not long after, Xiao Heng came over from the inner court. Because it was an outsider, noble consort Zhuang wanted to leave. Empress Dowager Zhuang waved her hand and said, "He's one of us. There's no need." Noble consort Zhuang's heart warmed, and the tip of her nose suddenly turned sour. It was rare that after she disobeyed her aunt still treated her as one of her own. Grand Tutor Zhuang fell from the throne. Prince Ning was imprisoned, and the Zhuang family was exiled. She originally thought that she would be unable to escape death. However, her aunt protected her despite everyone's objections. From now on, she wouldn't be stupid anymore. Empress Xiao asked someone to call Qin Chuyu and little Jing Kong over for dinner. The crown prince was not in the capital, so he wasn't called. Originally, she didn't call the emperor, but he eagerly followed. Imperial Mother. Little Hong Hong came to see you. He greeted her energetically. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes in despair. The whole family ate at Rinshou Palace. Qin Wuyo babbled, little Jing Kong and Qin Chuyu chased each other, and noble consort Zhuang, Empress Xiao, and Du Xiaoyan gossiped together. Xiao Heng played with the twins in the courtyard, and Gu Jiao accompanied her aunt to admire the moon. Rinshou Palace used to be the coldest and most inhumane palace in the imperial palace. Now it had a bit of the atmosphere of thousands of lights. Eunuch Qin looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang with emotion. Although her face was sour, her eyes were shining. He truly felt gratified for her. She floated most of her life, and didn't have her own flesh and blood. She thought that she would be alone for the rest of her life. God took pity on her, and gave her a perfect ending. After Xiao Heng and Gu Jiao bid farewell to their aunt, they took the twins back to the princess's residence. They first went to sit with Princess Xinyang. The twins were hungry, so Eugene took a milk bottle and made milk for them. They were too young and couldn't drink by themselves. Someone had to feed them. Xiao Yi, who was already 1 year and 3 months old, volunteered to take on this important task. Feed. She said in a childish voice. Princess Xinyang used to have a personality that wouldn't let her children do anything. Ever since Marquis Xianping participated in raising the children, her views changed a lot. Can you carry it? She asked Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi patted her small chest. I can carry it. Princess Xinyang gave 2 milk bottles to Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi stepped on a stool and climbed into the twins' small bed to feed them. She fed her little nephew first because he was thin. So she had to feed her little nephew first. Jiang Zheng mouth. She sat cross-legged and said to Xiao Tsong in a childish voice. Seeing that Xiao Tsong didn't open his mouth, she decisively stuffed the milk bottle into his mouth. Xiao Tsong just drank a mouthful. But Xiao Yi took away the milk bottle and drank 2 mouthfuls herself. Her principle for feeding her little nephew was, you take a mouthful, I 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 take another mouthful, and then I give you a small mouthful. As a result, Xiao Tsong didn't grow fat. Not only did he not have Long Yi's midnight snack, but he also encountered his little aunt snatching food. It was too difficult for him. Princess Xinyang indifferently asked, did you snatch Tsong Er's milk again? No, Yi didn't. Xiao Yi burped. Princess Xinyang. The next day, Gu Jiao took the twins back to Jadewater Alley. As usual, Xiao Heng came back after he was off duty. Everyone in the alley heard that Gu Jiao was pregnant with twins, so they all ran over to see the 2 little fellows. The 2 little fellows gave face to the neighbors and let them watch. From time to time, they would make a little sound. They were so cute that it made people's heart melt. Aunt Lu suddenly felt that her great-aunt's son was not fragrant. She wanted to snatch the babies. Gu Xiaobao was 2.5 years old. He had lost the baby fat he had when he was young. He looked thin, but he was very clever. The only thing was that he was still very lazy. For example, when he was asked to feed the twins, he was too lazy to snatch food. He was very relaxed when he finished feeding. Big sister. Now he called her big sister very smoothly. Xiaobao, what's wrong? Gu Jiao looked at him. Brother and sister are so small. He looked at the babies on the bed and said. Gu Jiao smiled. They're not brother and sister. They're nephew and niece. Gu Xiaobao was clearly unfamiliar with these 2 names. He had only heard of grandson and granddaughter. Uncle Zhao next door had them. He thought they meant the same thing. Thinking for a bit, he said seriously, I'm not old. Only old men have grandson and granddaughter. Haha. Gu Jiao laughed. Digression. Previously, when I wrote that consort Rui Wang was pregnant, I don't remember if I wrote that she gave birth to a son or a daughter. Does any reader remember? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/10454185 HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 953. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Xiaobao could not understand nephew and niece, but when Gu Jiao mentioned youngest uncle to him, he finally understood. He knew this. "I'm youngest uncle?" he asked. "Yes," Gu Jiao said. He thought seriously for a while and said, "Okay." He was a year older and was no longer like before, patting his chest and waving his small hands. To him, that was something a baby should do. Gu Jiao was surprised by his change. Children really changed every day. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan went to school, so only Madame Yao and a few maids were at home. Madame Yao carried a plate of desserts she made to the east room. She knew that her daughter did not like to eat things that were too sweet, so she only put a little sugar in the desserts. "You must be hungry since you were so busy early in the morning. Eat something." Madame Yao handed the desserts to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao took a piece of almond cake and tasted it. It still tasted like before, and was quite delicious. Madame Yao placed the plate of desserts on the stool, and turned to look at the two little ones. The weather was hot today, so Gu Jiao loosened their swaddling clothes. Xiao Tsong was still a quiet and pretty boy. Xiaoyan looked around curiously and stretched from time to time. She was very cute. The two children were very healthy, but Xiaoyan was a little chubbier. Madame Yao looked at them and could not help but think of Gu Yan and Gu Jiao. It was her lifelong regret that her biological daughter did not grow up by her side. The pain of missing out on precious time with her was not something that could be made up for in the days after they met. There would always be a hole in her heart that could not be filled. However, with the appearance of Xiao Tsong and Xiao Yan, the hole in her heart was slowly being filled. She liked the two children too much and was deeply grateful to them. "Mother, niece is so young." Gu Xiaobao expressed his opinion again. "When you were young, you were also this young." As Yaoshi spoke, she suddenly looked at him in shock. "You even know about nephews and nieces?" "Sis said so," Gu Xiaobao said. "I'm little uncle." Yaoshi smiled and patted his little head. "Xiaobao is really smart." Little uncle wanted to be a good elder, but his nephew and niece had only been eating and sleeping for 40 days. They couldn't play with him at all. He sat on the bed for a while and felt bored, so he went out to find his friends in the alley. Marquis Gu arrived at the door at the same time as Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng had just finished his shift. Coincidentally, so had Marquis Gu. Both of them were still wearing their official robes. In Zhao country, only officials of the 3rd rank and above were qualified to wear purple. Marquis Gu was the 4th rank assistant minister of the Ministry of Works, and his official robe was red. He looked at the purple-robed Xiaoheng, who was younger than him and of lower seniority, and suddenly felt extremely upset. The more a father-in-law looked at his son-in-law, the angrier he became. He really didn't expect that the poor brat he had always looked down on was the little Marquis of Zhaodu. No wonder he could be the top scorer. No matter how much he disliked this brat, he had to admit that the little Marquis of Zhaodu's knowledge wasn't fake. Forget it, being the little Marquis's father-in-law wasn't bad. His thoughts flashed, and he cleared his throat. Putting on the airs of a father-in-law, he said, "You're here, but you don't know how to call me father-in-law?" Xiaoheng brushed his wide sleeves and said lightly, "I married the daughter of Dukan of Yin. Dukan is my father-in-law." Marquis Gu was slapped in the face. His mouth twitched, and he angrily went in. Stupid brat, what kind of husband did she pick up? She didn't know any etiquette. When he saw that brat later, he would definitely teach her a lesson. He took large strides over the threshold and tripped. He fell flat on his face. "Gu Jiao, who had just come out of the east room, looked at him in confusion. A moment later she raised an eyebrow and said, "Oh, rise." Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu went to complain to Yao Shi with his bruised nose and swollen face. As soon as he entered the room, before he could speak, he saw the twins lying side by side on the bed. He stopped in his tracks. Twins were rare, and fraternal twins were even rarer. The last time he had seen such small fraternal twins was when Gu Yan and Gu Jinyu were young. He still remembered how the two looked when they were in swaddling clothes. The difference was that Gu Yan had a heart disease and didn't want to lie with Gu Jinyu. Thus he always cried, and the scene was not beautiful. The two little fellows in front of him were clearly lying on separate beds, but he could feel the connection between them through their blood vessels. A thought flashed through Marquis Gu's mind. So this was what real twins looked like. Marquis. Yao Shi was in a good mood today, and gave Marquis Gu a rare good expression. Marquis Gu walked over and looked at the two in a daze. Yao Shi automatically ignored the injuries on his face. Her eyes were filled with doting love for the twins. Ahing and Jiaojiao's twins, Zhong'er and Yan'er. Marquis Gu opened his mouth. That girl gave birth to them. Yao Shi smiled and said, "Aren't they very cute?" Marquis Gu wanted to refute, but he could not find anything to refute. The two little guys really were quite cute. He could not help but think of Gu Jinyu, who had been married off to the distant Marquis of Chongping's manor. Jinyu and that girl had gotten married on the same day. That girl already had twins. Jinyu should also be expecting, right? Feng City was the easternmost city in the country of Zhao. The Marquis of Chongping's manor was located on the wealthiest street in Feng City. Compared to the Marquis of Chongping's manor, which occupied such a large area, the courtyard that Gu Jinyu had been given was not as satisfactory. Luo Shui Courtyard, a courtyard that had been temporarily tidied up. Gu Jinyu had already married into the Marquis of Chongping's manor for the better part of a year, but she was still a virgin. At first, she found it hard to speak about this matter. Later on, the Marquis of Chongping's wife urged her to quickly give birth to a son for Third Master Quan, so she told the truth to her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law had interfered with their relationship as husband and wife, and it had been effective. Ever since then, the third master would come to her room on the 1st and 15th of every month. But even if they were lying on the same bed, the third master would not touch her at all. She once suspected that she wasn't attractive enough to Sanyi, or that she had unintentionally done something that made Sanyi disgusted. Until one day, she washed her hands to make soup. She spent an entire afternoon cooking a bowl of lotus seed porridge, and sent it to Sanyi. As a result, when she arrived at the study, she heard a shameful sound. She thought that it was some maidservant that was trying to seduce the third master during the day. Her head became hot and she pushed open the door to enter. However, she saw a scene that she would never forget. The third master was actually lying on his desk, and a man was. It was as though she had been struck by lightning, and her entire body was dazed. The third master flew into a rage out of humiliation, and threw her out. She was so angry that she argued with the third master for a while. During this time, she said some angry words that were not pleasant to the ears. Both sides had an ugly argument. In the end, she moved out of the third master's courtyard. She brought Chun Lu and a few other servants to live in this remote Luo Shui courtyard. This was the great marriage that she would rather break off relations with Yao Shi than give up. This was the Marquis Fu's legitimate son that she had set her mind on marrying. How ironic. Old Madame Gu knew about this, right? She had deliberately sent her into the fire pit. She only wanted to rope in the Marquis of Chongping, but she did not care if she lived or died. Her good grandmother really knew how to worry for her grandson. But all of this was just old Madame Gu's wishful thinking. Marquis Ding and Fu had 100,000 Gu family soldiers. Why would they need to rope in the Quan family? A short-sighted harem old woman had sold her out like this. Young Mississippi. Chun Lu carried a bowl of porridge to the window and carefully handed it to Gu Jinyu. It's almost cold. Drink it while it's hot. Gu Jinyu felt the cold wind. I don't have an appetite. Chun Lu said with heartache. You haven't eaten for many days. Gu Jinyu still did not want to eat. Ever since she came here, she had cut off all contact with the capital. But for some reason today, she mysteriously asked, Is there any news from the capital? Chun Lu pursed her lips and lowered her head. Gu Jinyu glanced at her and calmly said, "Just say it." Chun Lu bit her lip and quietly said, "I heard that eldest young miss gave birth to a pair of twins for the young marquis. It hasn't even been a year since the wedding and they've already given birth to offspring for the Xiao family. Twins. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha." Gu Jinyu clutched her chest that felt like it was being cut by a knife. She laughed self-mockingly, tears flowing from her eyes. Good, really good. The capital. Gu Chongqing and Yuan Baolin's wedding date was originally set for the 12th lunar month. Because Grand Secretary Yuan suddenly fell ill, the wedding date was repeatedly delayed. In the 3rd month, Grand Secretary Yuan's health improved. In the 4th month of the lunar calendar, the two finally welcomed their wedding. In order to attend Gu Chongqing's wedding, Gu Jiao also postponed her trip to Dark Knight Island for a period of time. Xian Yuanqi and Lu Chun had already led the Black Wind Cavalry and the Shadow Troop back to the Yin Kingdom. Lu Chun was still the 3rd Lord of Shadow, and Gu Jiao was still the junior commander of the Black Wind Cavalry. Although she was not in the Yin Kingdom, there were legends about her everywhere. As for the training of the troops, Marshal Xian Yuanqi temporarily took charge of it. On the 12th of the 4th month, at 7 o'clock, Gu Chongqing's wedding procession set off from the Marquis Ding En's mansion. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1045255537. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 954. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Gu Chongqing's entourage was huge. In addition to the awe-inspiring Gu family army, there were 3 younger brothers, Gu Chengfeng, Gu Qinglin, Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan, who was also regarded as his younger brother. The 4 of them were wearing the same royal blue brocade robes. They were tall and handsome, and they were the best-looking groomsmen in ancient times. The reason why Xiaoheng's groomsmen didn't get this honor was mainly because one person in Little Jingkong was not enough to form a group. The last time the capital was so lively, it was when the young Marquis of Xiaodu married the daughter of Dukan. The scene was comparable to a military parade. The wife of the Gu family army's young master couldn't be inferior. The groomsmen were too good-looking and attracted a lot of attention. However, the one who made people want to scream the most was the groom. For as long as Gu Chongqing could remember, he was either training soldiers in the military camp or fighting on the battlefield. The silver armor was the one he wore the most, and it was as cold as his title of King Yama. Today he changed into the groom's robes that he only wore once in his life. He instantly became as beautiful as peaches and plums. After the Grand Secretary got married, the hearts of the young ladies were once again shattered. This kind of peerless man was finally someone else's. The Yuan family. In Yuan Baolin's boudoir, Madame Yuan was crying. Her daughter was weak since childhood, and had to be raised in a Taoist temple. It wasn't easy for her to get rid of her Taoist robes and put on a woman's wedding dress. Yuan Baolin was wearing a phoenix coronet and rosy robes. She didn't have the coldness of a female Taoist priest. Her lips were rosy and she was beautiful. Yuan Baolin comforted her mother. "Mother, don't cry. You're just getting married. It's not like you won't come back in the future." Madame Yuan patted her daughter's hand, stared at her daughter and choked with sobs. "Of course you can't come back. You're married and you're a bride. You have to follow the rules in your husband's house." Yuan Baolin pursed her lips. They were not really husband and wife. The agreement between her and Gu Chongqing had clearly stated that she could return to her parents' home at any time, and Gu Chongqing could not stop her. As for setting the rules, Gu Chongqing had made things easy for her, so she naturally wouldn't make things difficult for him. On the surface, she could still do her best. Yuan Baolin sighed helplessly. I know. You've already nagged me 800 times. I can even memorize it. Madame Yuan wiped her tears with a handkerchief. That's because you grew up in a Taoist temple. I was worried that you didn't understand the customs of the secular world. Yuan Baolin said, I understand. It was written in the storybook, and she was learning it. Sis. Yuan Tong cried as she walked over. She hugged her sister and said, I can't bear to leave you. All right. Yuan Baolin comforted her mother and her younger sister. The woman on the side watched in a daze. She had seen a bride crying with her mother, but she had never seen a bride calmly comforting a large family. When the auspicious time arrived, Yuan Baolin's older brother carried her out of the boudoir. Yuan Tong ran behind while crying, Sis. Gu Chongqing received the bride and cupped his hands to bid farewell to his in-laws. Father, mother, please do not worry. I will take good care of Baolin. Madame Yuan choked with sobs. Father Yuan's eyes were red as he heavily patted Gu Chongqing's shoulder. Remember what you said. Go. I'll leave Baolin to you. Once Gu Chongqing left, Father Yuan turned around and covered his face with a large hand. He began to cry. Wah! Baolin is married. Madame Yuan, who had been crying, trembled. She looked at her man as if she had seen a ghost. She had suddenly met someone who could cry even more than her. She was so shocked that she couldn't cry anymore. The bridal procession arrived at Marquis Ding, and manner in a lively manner. Gu Chongqing dismounted from his horse. Arriving in front of the sedan, he extended his slender hand. Yuan Baolin had originally planned on walking down, but she suddenly saw the hand that was extended from under the veil. She was stunned. She understood the principle of putting on an act. It was just holding hands, so it shouldn't matter. She gently placed her soft and boneless hand in Gu Chongqing's palm. Gu Chongqing lacked experience with women. After growing up, the only woman he had been close to was his younger sister. His younger sister's hand had calluses and injuries from working and fighting. Yuan Baolin's hand was a bit different. This was a delicate hand. He was very worried that if he wasn't careful, he would break her hand. He let the bride down from the sedan. The wedding nanny finally came back with the red silk. There had been a small hiccup. Fortunately, the groom had already led the bride down from the sedan, otherwise it would have been awkward. She smiled as she handed the red silk to the newlyweds. The two people grabbed the red silk and walked into the manor. The bride needed to cross the saddle and step on the tiles. Crossing the saddle was very smooth, but when it came to stepping on the tiles, Gu Xiaoshan gasped. He patted Gu Yan and said in a small voice, That's my cement tile. Who took the wrong one? What cement tile? The tile had been taken by Gu Yan. He had taken the thinnest one so that it would be easier to break. Gu Xiaoshan grabbed his head in despair. It's over. This tile was taught to me by elder sister. I used it to mend the roof for the foreign. I can't break it. In Zhao country's customs, if the bride could not break the tile, it would be seen as an ominous and unchaste omen. Yuan Baolin was completely unaware of this. She raised a foot and stepped on it. Gu Chongqing's eyes swept over the tile. He immediately sensed that something was wrong. Almost as soon as Yuan Baolin's foot landed, he put two fingers together and sent out a burst of internal energy, shattering the tile under her foot. Yuan Baolin looked at the tiles that had been trampled into powder by her. She was stunned and said, I'm that powerful. Gu Xiaoshan gave a thumbs up. Saw, good leg strength. Gu Chongqing calmly led Yuan Baolin into the main hall. Marquis Gu and Yao Shi were sitting on high chairs. Marquis Gu was smiling so much that his eyes couldn't be seen. Yao Shi was also very happy. First bow to the heavens and earth. Second bow to the parents. Husband and wife bow to each other. Yuan Baolin and Gu Chongqing did not control the distance well and bowed very sincerely. Their heads bumped into each other. Io. Yuan Baolin cried out in pain. Gu Chongqing's expression froze and he said in a low voice, Sorry. The surrounding guests burst into laughter. The bride was first sent to the bridal chamber. She sat on the wedding bed that Gu Xiaobao had rolled around on. Gu Chongqing looked at her and said to her, I'll go outside to entertain the guests. If you're hungry, you can eat something first. Yuan Baolin said. Then help me take off my veil first. The two of them were in a fake marriage. It didn't matter who took off the veil. But since Yuan Baolin had made this request, Gu Chongqing still picked up the jade ruyi on the table and lifted her veil. What entered his eyes was a strange yet familiar face. It was familiar because he knew her. It was strange because he had never seen her like this. A girl's jiaojia was soft and bright. It was vividly displayed by her outfit. It was also Yuan Baolin's first time seeing Gu Chongqing so joyous. You look quite good in wedding clothes. Not only was the young duke the best in Jiaodu, there was also the young master of the Gu family. You too. Gu Chongqing replied politely. Yuan Baolin smiled and thought of something. She looked at him and asked, Tonight I'll sleep on the floor. Gu Chongqing finished speaking and saw her shocked face. He thought that she thought this was inappropriate and explained. If I'm not in the bridal chamber on the night of the bridal chamber, people will say that I'm disgusted with you. Yuan Baolin smiled embarrassedly. That's not what I meant. I'm asking if I can sleep first without waiting for you? Gu Chongqing. Sure, he said. Yuan Baolin asked again. Then, will there be people coming to disturb the bridal chamber? Do you need me to prepare? Gu Chongqing said calmly, I won't. Currently, no one in the capital dared to disturb his bridal chamber. Xiao Heng and Shang Guanqing dared, but the former did not have such bad taste, and the latter was not in Zhao country. Yuan Baolin was relieved. Go do your work, don't worry about me. Okay. Gu Chongqing turned and left the room. He ordered the secret guards to throw out all those who came to disturb the bridal chamber. Not long after, Gu Xiaobao came over. Yuan Baolin looked at the little bean who suddenly appeared and asked curiously, Who are you? Xiaobao. Gu Xiaobao introduced himself. Are you my sister-in-law? Yuan Baolin remembered that Gu Chongqing had a little brother called Xiaobao. She smiled and said, Yes, I'm your sister-in-law. Oh, then this is for you. Gu Xiaobao handed her the mini food box in his hands. The small food box looked the same as the large food box. They both had several layers of drawers and a handle. They looked like toys made for children to play with. This family was really considerate and very considerate of the child. Yuan Baolin took it and opened it, and a delicious smell wafted into her nose. She took it out layer by layer and found that it was all food. There were meat, vegetables, buns and pastries, all small and exquisite. Your brother asked you to send this? Yuan Baolin asked. Yes. Gu Xiaobao nodded. Gu Xiaobao expressed his dissatisfaction with not being able to pick up the bride, and Gu Chongqing wanted him to feel involved, so he gave this important task to him. But Gu Chongqing never expected that he would be so particular as to ask the kitchen to make his own special dishes, and send it in his own small food box. He was indeed a child who grew up in Jingkong. Yuan Baolin thought that Gu Xiaobao was too funny and could not help but pinch his face. Gu Xiaobao. Okay, you're my sister-in-law. My brother asked me to treat you better so you can pinch me. The two of them shared the delicious food that Gu Xiaobao sent. At night, Gu Chongqing, who was forced to drink a few rounds by the guests, returned to the bridal chamber. Gu Xiaobao had already left, and Yuan Baolin's maids were waiting outside. He stepped into the room and saw that Yuan Baolin was indeed asleep. The thin red silk curtain hung down, reflecting the light of the candles. It was a festive sight. Her graceful figure was faintly discernible under the curtain, with the unique beauty of a young girl, inadvertently exuding a trace of spring charm. Gu Chongqing looked away, and went to the wardrobe to take out a mattress and spread it on the floor. He then took a quilt and lay down with his clothes on. Gu Chongqing. Yuan Baolin suddenly spoke from inside the curtain. Gu Chongqing subconsciously looked at the curtain, but quickly retracted his gaze like a gentleman. You're not asleep? Yuan Baolin said. I'm a little uncomfortable with the bed, so I can't sleep. Gu Chongqing paused. Then you, Granny Zhang. A maid's voice suddenly came from outside the door. I'm here to deliver hangover soup to the heir. Granny Zhang was old Madame Gu's confidant. If she found out that Gu Chongqing was sleeping on the floor, things would be bad. Yuan Baolin sat up and opened the curtain. she said to Gu Changqing. Come up quickly. If it was someone else, Gu Changqing could block them. But it was someone sent by grandmother. If he blocked Granny Zhang with grandmother's temper, she would definitely come herself. Gu Changqing frowned and neatly rolled up the bedding and stuffed it into the wardrobe. Yuan Baolin quickly jumped off the bed and raised her hand to untie his belt. Gu Changqing's eyes trembled. What are you doing? Yuan Baolin said. Today is the wedding night. Don't you think it's strange that you're dressed so neatly? I'll do it myself. Gu Changqing said. Yuan Baolin used her eyes to look at the window. The two people's shadows were reflected in the window. Granny Zhang called out with a smile from outside the door. Gu Changqing let go of his hand and let Yuan Baolin untie his belt. The two of them were too close. He could clearly feel her breath and the faint feminine fragrance on her body. Yuan Baolin untied his lapel and took off his hair crown. Then she said with satisfaction, All right, your clothes are a bit messy. Gu Changqing straightened his expression and walked over to open the door for Granny Zhang. Granny, it's so late. Why did you come over? Granny Zhang saw his disheveled appearance and felt happy. The heir didn't even touch a maidservant in the fu. Old Madame Gu said that she was worried that the air wasn't good in that area. Looking at her anxious appearance, Old Madame Gu was worrying too much. She looked into the room again. Yuan Baolin had already laid back down in the curtains. Only a sparkling and translucent snow-white foot could be seen. Aya, was the air this fierce? As soon as he returned to his room Granny Zhang's heart bloomed with joy. Drink the hangover soup while it's hot. Gu Changqing took it and drank it in one gulp. He said to Granny Zhang, Then I'll go to sleep first. I'll have to trouble Granny Zhang to tell grandmother to rest early. I'll go pay my respects to her tomorrow morning. Good. Granny Zhang held the empty bowl and left with a smile. What was old Madame Gu worried about? She was worried that the heir wouldn't be able to do it, and insisted that she send that bowl of soup. In her opinion, the heir's wife wouldn't be able to get up tomorrow morning. Gu Changqing let out a long breath. He took a step back and closed the door. He also bolted the door. Yuan Baolin quickly took back her foot. That foot was for Granny Zhang to see, not Gu Changqing. However, Gu Changqing was a martial artist. He turned around quickly and had good eyesight, so he saw it immediately. Her fingernails were smooth and sparkling like jade. They were small and exquisite, making people want to hold them in their hands and play with them. This wasn't something he could see. He quickly looked elsewhere and composed himself. He walked to the cabinet, opened the door, and took the bedding out again. He once again lay down with his clothes on. But he didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a bit hot in his heart. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1045214161. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. When he went to war, he had also seen many women, but he had never been like this. Or was there something wrong with the wine tonight? No, everyone drank it. He even drank the hangover soup that his grandfather sent over. Hangover soup. Gu Changqing clenched his fists. He finally understood what was going on. His grandmother was really... Gu Changqing sighed angrily and turned around with his back facing the bed. He tried his best to use this as a psychological cue to isolate Yuan Baolin. He recited a few Buddhist scriptures that little Jing Kong had taught him in his mind and managed to slightly suppress the heat in his body. However, at this moment, Yuan Baolin, who was on the bed, turned over. As an expert, his hearing was very good. He heard Yuan Baolin turn over and kick off the quilt. He heard Yuan Baolin turn over again and tug at her clothes. He heard Yuan Baolin lift the curtain and walk towards him barefooted. Walking towards him. Gu Changqing's heart skipped a beat. He quickly turned around to look at her. There were dragon and phoenix candles burning in the room. The candles were not very bright, but they were definitely not dark either. Yuan Baolin came to the table with slight irritation. She was wearing a red undergarment. The lapel of her shirt was slanted by her, revealing her fair neck. Her glossy black hair casually cascaded down her back, making her skin look so white that it was glowing. What's wrong?" he asked in a hoarse voice. Yuan Baolin poured a cup of tea. "It's so hot. I'm so thirsty." Then she drank the herbal tea in one gulp. She still wasn't satisfied, so she poured herself another cup. She drank 3 cups in one go, but it was still very hot. It didn't quench her thirst at all. Just as she was about to drink the 4th cup, she was stopped by Gu Changqing. Gu Changqing sat up and looked at her. "Don't drink anymore. If you drink anymore, your stomach will explode." Yuan Baolin raised her hand to touch her hot cheeks. "But I feel so uncomfortable." Gu Changqing looked at her again. This time, he realized that her condition wasn't right. Her face was abnormally red and her eyes were blurred. Even her breathing became rapid and short. Gu Changqing didn't want to think of the worst, but he still asked, "What did you eat today?" Yuan Baolin's voice gradually became confused. "Food and snacks." Gu Changqing sucked in a breath of cold air. The heat that he had suppressed with great difficulty was ignited again by her slightly panting voice. He suppressed the evil fire in his lower abdomen and said in a normal tone, "Xiaobao sent it?" "Yes." Yuan Baolin nodded. The food sent by Gu Xiaobao was definitely fine. He also needed to eat it. Even if someone wanted to do something, it was impossible to drug a child's food. "Nothing else?" he asked. Yuan Baolin struggled to think. After a while she said, "Oh, before you came back, old madam sent a bowl of lotus seed soup over." "Grandmother again. Very good." It was hard for him not to guess the answer. Gu Changqing was good at fighting, but he wasn't old Madame Gu's opponent in matters of the inner courtyard. There was a saying that the older the ginger, the spicier it was. If Gu Changqing thought that old Madame Gu only put all her eggs in one basket, then he was too naive. When it came to matters of the boudoir, it was naturally better for both sides to have a burning passion. Yuan Baolin looked at him with grievance. "Gu Changqing, I'm so hot." Gu Changqing's eyelashes trembled. He stood up and went to the door. He opened it and said, "Someone come." A nanny on night duty came over with a coat. Gu Changqing ordered. "Go get some water." The nanny was shocked. She subconsciously looked at him and blurted out, "So fast? How long has it been since the door closed?" You can't be so fast." Gu Changqing didn't understand what she meant by fast at first. When he realized what she meant, he choked. No. The prestige of a lifetime was destroyed in an instant. The nanny gave Gu Changqing an "I understand" look. It was normal that he hadn't eaten meat before. "This servant will go get the water." She turned and left. Not long after, the entire kitchen knew that the heir had asked for water. Gu Changqing choked. When she brought over a bucket of hot water, he remembered that he had forgotten to remind her that she wanted cold water. "Cold water, ice cubes," Gu Changqing said coldly. The nanny looked at him thoughtfully. His martial arts weren't very good, but he had a lot of tricks. Did he want to add 2 candles? Gu Changqing's face sank. "Do you not want to work in the manor anymore?" The nanny left with her tail between her legs. Then the entire kitchen knew that the heir's driving skills weren't good enough. Gu Changqing was a general with strong willpower. Cold water and ice cubes were effective for him. However, Yuan Baolin was different. She was a weak girl with poor resistance to drugs. No matter how many ice cubes were placed on her hands, other than feeling uncomfortable from the cold, she didn't feel any relief. She sat in the cold water and looked at Gu Changqing with an aggrieved expression. Gu Changqing turned his face away. He was also suffering from the effects of the drug. He couldn't resist her wet, anti-harmony, body temptation, anti-harmony. He began to meditate on the mattress on the floor. He chanted Buddhist scriptures, the clear mind mantra, the martial arts mantra. One by one, he removed the thoughts from his mind. Just as he was about to suppress the evil fire with great difficulty, Yuan Baolin called out to Gu Changqing with a choked voice. This directly destroyed half of his reason. Yuan Baolin. He clenched his fists and tried to stop himself from turning around. Don't call me. Don't make any noise. I'm afraid that I won't be able to resist bullying you. Yuan Baolin said with an aggrieved expression. Then what if I let you bully me? Gu Chongqing's breathing stopped. Half of his mind was destroyed. He tried to calm down his tone. Yuan Baolin, this isn't what you're thinking. It's the effect of the drug. This drug isn't the kind that you can find outside. That kind of drug is only used to liven things up. The effect isn't that strong. Just bear with it and it'll be over. Yuan Baolin pursed her lips and said, How do you know it's not what I'm thinking? Gu Chongqing took a deep breath. Didn't we agree? Yuan Baolin interrupted him with an aggrieved and resentful look. I tricked you, okay? If I didn't say that, would you have married me? Gu Chongqing clenched his fists tightly. You've been blinded by the drug. You don't understand what you're saying. Gu Chongqing. Yuan Baolin. Shut up. How could Yuan Baolin obediently shut up? She whispered. It's okay if you don't come over. Take off your clothes. I'll quench my thirst by looking at plums. Gu Chongqing almost stumbled and fell down. Yuan Baolin saw that he was indifferent and couldn't help but snort. Are you the Taoist priest or am I the Taoist priest? How come you're more pure and simple than me? Gu Chongqing, is it because you can't do it? Gu Chongqing clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. Yuan Baolin's sanity could no longer be maintained here. When she was young, she was sent to the Taoist temple to recuperate because of her weak body. When she grew up, she looked like a normal person, but in fact, she was still a little weak. For ordinary people, the soup that livened things up was a tiger wolf medicine for her. Her vision turned black, and she powerlessly slipped into the water. Gu Chongqing felt that something was wrong with the sound. Yuan Baolin, Yuan Baolin, Yuan Baolin. He shouted 3 times, but there was no response. He hurriedly turned his head, but all he saw was a bare wooden barrel. He stood up with a swish, and walked to the side of the wooden barrel in 3 steps, and scooped up Yuan Baolin, who had sunk into the water. Yuan Baolin, Yuan Baolin. Seeing that she didn't respond, he frowned and carried her out. Her slender and soft body fell into his arms. Even though it was ice cold, his arm was burning hot. Her wet clothes stuck to her body, outlining her beautiful and charming figure. Her fragrance seeped into his nostrils and Gu Chongqing couldn't breathe properly. Yuan Baolin slowly opened her eyes and looked at him in a daze. She raised her hand and wrapped it around his neck. Yuan Baolin, you. His words were blocked by Yuan Baolin. Gu Chongqing's body stiffened as his last bit of sanity left him. His arms wrapped around her, and he flipped her over so that she was under him. The night was long, but the night of spring was short. Digression. The fastest face-slapping couple in history 2333. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1045060004. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 956. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In Fusho Courtyard, old Madame Gu woke up early. She dressed up and sat in the main hall, waiting for her grandson and granddaughter-in-law to come and greet her. In the end, they didn't come even when the sun was high up in the sky. She burst into laughter. Nanny Zhang looked at her strangely. Old Madame Gu used a handkerchief to cover her face and said, "Who was on duty in Chongqing's courtyard last night? Call them over." Nanny Zhang went to Gu Chongqing's courtyard and called over a nanny with the surname Wu. She was the one who had fetched water and rope for Gu Chongqing. After Nanny Wu entered Fusho courtyard, she immediately reported to old Madame Gu that the Shitsi had asked for water and all kinds of small props last night. I didn't expect the Shitsi to be so troublesome. Old Madame Gu's smile disappeared and she frowned. He didn't break anyone, right? Her grandson couldn't have such a strange hobby. If word got out, his reputation would be ruined. Moreover, her granddaughter-in-law was the daughter of the Yuan family, a real noble lady. If anything went wrong, she couldn't explain it to the Yuan family. Granny Zhang glanced at her master. She had served the old madam for many years, so she understood the old madam's personality too well. The old madam valued birth the most. No matter how gentle a woman of low status was, she did not like them. For example, Yao Shi. But old Madame Gu was much more tolerant of the daughters of noble families. Back then, when she wasn't able to form a marriage alliance with Ling family, the old madam still harbored a bit of anger inside. However, when she heard that she was going to marry Grand Secretary Yuan's legitimate granddaughter, the bit of unhappiness at the bottom of her heart immediately vanished into thin air. Nanny Wu didn't dare to say anything. She didn't know if the Shitsi had broken anyone. She didn't go in to take a look either. She only listened. It was quite loud. Nanny Zhang smiled and said, "Old madam, don't worry. Don't you know the Shitsi? He knows how to dote on people. You can leave." Old Madame Gu said to Nanny Wu. "Yes." Nanny Wu respectfully left the room. Old Madame Gu said worriedly, "Will something really go wrong?" "That won't happen." Granny Zhang smiled and handed old Madame Gu a cup of tea to calm her nerves. Old Madame Gu took the teacup and took a sip. "I heard that Bao Lin is a talented woman. Since her grandson was going to marry the daughter of the Yuan family, she naturally had to investigate the other party's background. If she didn't investigate, she wouldn't have known, but once she did, she was shocked. That girl was actually well-read and knew 6 languages. In the past, it was rumored that when Lin Lang was the most talented woman in the capital, but compared to Yuan Baolin, she was nothing. Yuan Baolin had always kept a low profile, but it was precisely because of her low profile that old Madame Gu liked her so much. Granny Zhang smiled. In the end, it was all because Shitsi Foreign came from a good family. Even if she wasn't a talented woman, old Madame wouldn't mind. On the other hand, if she didn't come from a good family, old Madame wouldn't say anything good about her based on her talent. Old Madame Gu said, "Go to Chongqing's courtyard and tell them not to come and pay their respects. Have a good rest." Granny Zhang said hesitantly, "About Madame. Madame Yao was Madame Yao. For Gu Chongqing's wedding, Madame Yao had temporarily moved back to the mansion, and would only return after drinking tea with her daughter-in-law." Old Madame Gu snorted. "You don't have to worry about her. She won't care about this." It was one thing for old Madame Gu to dislike Madame Yao, but it was another thing for her to understand Madame Yao's character. Madame Yao would never torture her daughter-in-law. When Gu Chongqing woke up, he felt someone in his arms. He felt dizzy for a moment, and then the unspeakable memories in his mind swept over him like waves. When he realized what he had done, he really wanted to punch himself. Yuan Baolin woke up later than Gu Chongqing. When she opened her eyes, Gu Chongqing was no longer in the room. Her clothes were still intact, and she didn't know who had put them on for her. She planned to call her own maid to come in and serve her, but she found that her voice was so hoarse that she couldn't speak. She wanted to get off the bed herself, but her legs weren't hers. Gu Chongqing pushed open the door and entered. The moonlight chased after him. His face was shrouded in darkness, but his features could still be seen clearly. He had practiced martial arts for many years, and he was tall and had broad shoulders and a narrow waist. His body proportions were excellent. He held a bowl of Job's tears porridge in his hand. Seeing that the curtains were lifted and Yuan Baolin was sitting awkwardly at the head of the bed, his eyes moved, and he said calmly, "You're awake." Yuan Baolin nodded. Gu Chongqing stepped in and closed the door. "I'm going to light the lamp." He asked for her opinion. Yuan Baolin pinched her own throat and asked in a hoarse voice, "Is it still not dawn?" Gu Chongqing opened his mouth. "It's already dark." Yuan Baolin's face turned red. Gu Chongqing's tone was normal as he said, "Don't worry, the elders have already talked to them. The handkerchief has also been taken away. Grandmother is very happy." His original intention was to let Yuan Baolin relax, but when the words handkerchief came out, the two of them were both embarrassed. They had agreed on a fake marriage, but in the end, the first day had been overturned, and it had been overturned into a ditch. That. Yuan Baolin's face was red, not daring to look at Gu Chongqing's expression. Gu Chongqing was not much calmer than her, but in the end he was a man, so it was impossible for him to awkwardly deny what he had done. He held the Job's tears porridge and said seriously, "Last night's matter was my fault. I broke the promise first. In the future, I won't marry anyone else, and I won't like anyone else. If you want to leave, you can leave at any time. If there is no more suitable home, I will be responsible for you." Yuan Baolin raised her eyes and looked at him without blinking. "Really, you won't like anyone?" "No," Gu Chongqing said with certainty. "You can rest assured." Yuan Baolin lowered her eyes, and her voice was a little disappointed. "Oh, drink the porridge first," Gu Chongqing said to her. He was a big straight man, so he did not notice that there was something wrong with Yuan Baolin's tone. He only thought that she was unhappy because she was angry with him last night. She did not say that she did not want to light the lamp, so Gu Chongqing walked to the bedside in the dark. Fortunately, there was a weak candlelight in the corridor, and there was also a thin layer of moonlight in the night sky, so he could see. He handed the bowl of porridge to her. "Feed me," Yuan Baolin said in a small voice. Gu Chongqing was stunned. Yuan Baolin said with grievance, "I don't have the strength. You're the one who did it." Gu Chongqing. The next day Yuan Baolin, who had slept for a day and a night, finally got up very early. Because it was too early, the old duke had not yet left for the army camp. She and Gu Chongqing went to pay their respects to the old duke. This marriage was personally decided by the old duke. He was very satisfied with Yuan Baolin, and even if he was not, he would not treat Yuan Baolin badly. "Chongqing, take good care of Baolin. Don't bully her," he said to Gu Chongqing. Gu Chongqing cupped his hands in obeisance. "Yes, I will keep that in mind." "Go and pay your respects to your grandmother," the old duke said. Yuan Baolin said sweetly, "Grandfather, Baolin will take her leave now. I will come to see you another day." "Okay." The word grandfather was very pleasant to hear. The two of them went to Fusho Court to pay their respects to old Madame Gu. Old Madame Gu took Yuan Baolin's hand and looked at it carefully. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. She was already very beautiful in the portrait, but in real life, she was even more beautiful. Yuan Baolin successfully played the role of a virtuous and well-behaved granddaughter-in-law with the advantage of being a level 10 storyteller. Old Madame Gu was so coaxed that she could not close her mouth. She gave Yuan Baolin 5 sets of head ornaments in one go. Yuan Baolin had seen all kinds of gold, silver, and jewelry, but she was still flattered. "Grandmother, this is too expensive. I can't accept it." Old Madame Gu patted the back of her hand and said, "Accept it. You must accept it. You quickly give birth to more children for the Gu family. I am still waiting to hold a fat little great-grandson." Yuan Baolin smiled. "Baolin will work hard." Gu Chongqing, who was sitting on the side drinking tea, could not help but choke. After leaving Fusho Court, the two of them went to Madame Yao's place. Marquis Gu was also there. Madame Yao liked Yuan Baolin very much. It was not because of her family background, but because of her personality. She was different from the daughters of other families. She had a calm side but also a cute side. She was smart but not unreasonable. She was straightforward without any edges. She got along well with the people in Baishui Alley. Baolin greets father, mother. Yuan Baolin greeted the two of them. Gu Chongqing also bowed to the two of them. Father, mother. Ever since Madame Yao married into the Marquis's household, Gu Chongqing had always addressed her as Madame. This was the first time he had called her mother. Madame Yao looked dazedly at Gu Chongqing. She suspected that she had misheard. Yuan Baolin glanced at the two of them, and then pulled on Gu Chongqing's sleeve. "Shouldn't you be offering tea to father and mother?" Gu Chongqing's eyelashes trembled. "Yes." The servants poured tea. The two of them knelt on the cushions and offered the tea with both hands. When Gu Chongqing held a cup of tea in front of Madame Yao, he solemnly and sincerely said, "Mother, Please drink tea. He really called her mother. It was not that her ears had gone bad. Madame Yao's heart was suddenly filled with all sorts of feelings. A layer of bitterness rose to the tip of her nose. From the day she married into the Marquis's household, she had not had any extravagant hopes. Later on, she had not had any expectations. But at this moment, an indescribable emotion rose in her heart. Marquis Gu stared fixedly at her. She slowly reached out and took the cup of tea that her eldest son held. Her eyes reddened as she smiled. Yes. Digression. Yuan Baolin's knowledge of 6 languages is described in Chapter 256, 3 Hairpin Flowers. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online will be available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1045011841. HTML Genius will remember this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 957. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that cannot be found online will be available here. The grudges of the past had passed, and the misunderstandings that should have been resolved had been resolved. Yao Shi was not an evil stepmother, and Gu Chongqing was a good older brother. For Gu Jiao he had risked his life several times. Yao Shi no longer had the resentment she had in the past. She was only deeply moved and grateful. But not having any grudges in her heart was one thing. Truly creating a barrier on the surface was another. She said that she did not have any expectations, but in this moment, she realized that she had been waiting for this call of mother. Look at you. Why are you crying? Marquis Gu saw Yao Shi cry as she held the teacup. He quickly took out a handkerchief to help her wipe. Isn't it just calling for someone? Although he muttered this, he understood that Yao Shi had waited for this call of mother for too long. When his sons were young, he had used countless methods, both soft and hard, to force them to be filial to Yao Shi and call her mother. But the 3 brothers were very stubborn. They would rather be beaten to death than do as they were told. The old madam loved her grandson, and did not allow him to force the 3 children. Thus, the matter of calling for someone had been delayed. Now that his eldest son had taken the initiative to speak, to be honest, he was very surprised. But thinking about the interactions they had had over the past few years, he felt that it was natural. Yuan Baolin looked at Yao Shi, and then looked at Gu Chongqing, who appeared calm on the surface but was definitely feeling quite a bit on the inside. She also received a teacup from a servant and presented it to Yao Shi with both hands. Mother, please have some tea. Good. Yao Shi smiled with tears in her eyes as she received her daughter-in-law's tea. Yao Shi also gave Yuan Baolin a box of jewelry. She and Gu Jiao had gone to a shop to pick it out. The style was new and simple. It complemented Yuan Baolin's temperament. Yuan Baolin saw this and knew that a lot of thought had gone into this gift. She smiled and gave her thanks. Many thanks, mother. The young couple ate lunch in Yao Shi's courtyard. After leaving the courtyard, the 2 walked back together. When they passed by the small garden, Gu Chongqing suddenly stopped and said to Yuan Baolin, I'm going to the barracks in a while. I might not be back tonight. You should settle down early. Without waiting for Yuan Baolin to speak, the Marquis strode over with his hands behind his back. Grandfather. The 2 of them bowed to him. The old Marquis nodded. I'm going out. You can go back to the courtyard. Gu Chongqing said, Grandfather, are you going to the barracks? I'm going with my grandfather. The Marquis looked at him strangely. Why are you traveling with me? I'll give you a holiday. You don't have to go to the barracks this month. Stay at home and accompany Baolin. Gu Chongqing choked. Yuan Baolin's lips curled up. I'm leaving. The old Marquis left with an indifferent expression. Yuan Baolin smiled. Grandfather, take care. The Marquis, who had already taken 2 steps, solemnly replied. Yuan Baolin looked regretfully at Gu Changqing. What should we do? Grandfather won't let you go to the barracks. Gu Changqing was at his wit's end. He had been practicing martial arts since he was a child. When he was 15, he went to war with his grandfather. If he wasn't training soldiers, he was licking blood from the edge of a blade. He wasn't used to being idle all of a sudden. He sighed. I'm going to the back of the mountain to practice swordsmanship. Yuan Baolin made a sound of surprise and whispered. You still have the strength to practice swordsmanship? Gu Changqing didn't react for a moment. Of course I have. As he said this, he realized the meaning of Yuan Baolin's words. It had only been 2 days, but the awkwardness hadn't subsided. He cleared his throat and said seriously, I'll send you back to your courtyard first. Gu Changqing sent Yuan Baolin back to her room, before going to the back of the mountain to practice swordsmanship. He practiced all the way until night. He returned to the courtyard, sweating profusely. He found Yuan Baolin sitting in the room waiting for him. There were several exquisite and delicious dishes on the table, but they seemed to have been left out for too long. They were no longer hot. You're back. Yuan Baolin greeted him. He nodded slightly and asked her. You were waiting for me? Yes. Yuan Baolin answered him and said to the maid beside her. Take these dishes to the kitchen and heat them up. Yes, Mississippi Ewer took the dishes away. Yuan Baolin handed him a napkin. He paused, took it, and then said, If I come back late in the future, you can eat first. There's no need to wait for me. Yuan Baolin said, It'll be strange if I eat first. It'll be easy to give the game away, and let people know that we're fake husband and wife. Gu Changqing thought about it, and found this to be reasonable. He said, Then I will try to come back early. The 2 of them finished eating, washed up, and prepared to go to bed. Gu Changqing was fully dressed from head to toe. Even his collar was tied up to the highest point. Besides being handsome, his whole body exuded a cold and ascetic aura. Yuan Baolin was not dressed as formally as him, but her clothes were still intact. Yuan Baolin opened the red gauze curtain and got on the bed. Gu Changqing closed the door and went to pick up the bedding on the floor as usual. However, he found that the bedding in the cabinet was gone. He frowned. Yuan Baolin poked her head out of the curtain. What's wrong? Did something happen? Gu Changqing frowned and said, The mattress is gone. Yuan Baolin asked, How did this happen? Gu Changqing was still frowning. Maybe the servants who cleaned the room saw that the mattress was dirty and took it to wash. I'll ask them to bring some new ones. Hey, Gu Changqing. Yuan Baolin stopped him. If they saw that it was dirty and took it away, then if you sleep on the floor tonight, they will find it dirty tomorrow morning. It's okay if it happens once or twice, but if it happens too many times, the fact that you sleep on the floor will be exposed sooner or later. In the novel, the man slept on the floor so that he could not sleep with his wife. It seemed like a perfect plan, but in reality, it was easy to find the loophole. Were the servants blind? How could they not know that the mattress had been on the floor? Gu Changqing hadn't thought so much at first, mainly because he hadn't expected his grandfather to not allow him to go to the military camp. If he was really dirty under his mattress for a month, it would really raise suspicions. Come up and sleep, Yuan Baolin said. The bed is very big anyway. Gu Changqing looked at the door that was bolted. Yuan Baolin followed his gaze and said, They are standing guard outside. If you sleep in the study, tomorrow the entire manor will spread the news that we are newlyweds who do not get along. Gu Changqing looked at the benches in the room. I can sleep on the benches. Yuan Baolin, oh. Gu Changqing arranged the benches, but as soon as he lay down, the benches collapsed. Gu Changqing, who was dazed from the fall, was speechless. In the end, Gu Changqing could only lie down in the red silk tent. The bed was very big. Yuan Baolin slept on the innermost side, and he slept on the edge of the bed. He wished that he could lie down in the middle. Yuan Baolin was not distracted. She closed her eyes and fell asleep in a flash. Gu Changqing lay flat with his hands folded on his abdomen. He looked at the top of the red silk tent. Her even breathing was by his ear. and the tip of his nose was lingering with her warm and soft fragrance. The red gauze canopy completely gathered her fragrance in this narrow space, and the darkness of the night thickened everything. Because his vision was limited, his other senses were infinitely magnified. In addition to her voice and breath, even the soft bed under him and the silky brocade quilt on his body stimulated his instincts as a man. The scene of their wedding night flashed through his mind. She was under him with tears in her eyes, her soft body trembling slightly. He clenched his fists slightly and took a deep breath. He closed his eyes and forcibly eliminated the distracting thoughts in his mind. On the day that Gu Chongqing accompanied Yuan Baolin to visit her parents, there was a lantern festival on Chang'an Avenue. Yuan Baolin wanted to go to the lantern festival, and Gu Chongqing accompanied her. I'm going too. Yuan Tong pulled her sister's hand and said. Madame Yuan fiercely glared at her younger daughter. Your sister and brother-in-law are going to the lantern festival. What are you going to do? However, Yuan Tong did not receive her mother's sharp glare. She missed her sister to death these past few days. Her sister finally came back, so she was not willing to part with her sister so soon. Can my younger sister come along? Yuan Baolin asked Gu Chongqing for his opinion. Of course you can. Gu Chongqing generously agreed. He said to Father Yuan and Madame Yuan, Father-in-law, mother-in-law, please rest assured. After the lantern festival is over, I will send her back. Yuan Tong happily smiled. Brother-in-law is the best. At this point, Madame Yuan could no longer stop Yuan Tong. She could only let her go. When they came, Gu Chongqing and Yuan Baolin sat in the same carriage. Now that Yuan Baolin was with them, Gu Chongqing rode in front to avoid suspicion. In the carriage, the two sisters talked about intimate things. Yuan Tong grabbed her sister's hand and whispered, Sister, tell me the truth, is brother-in-law good to you? Yuan Baolin said, Very good. Really? Really? Yuan Tong nodded. Then I'm relieved. Gu Chongqing had no intention of eavesdropping, but his hearing was there. It seemed that Yuan Baolin did not even tell her closest sister about them being a fake couple. Chang'an Avenue was congested. The carriage came to the side and could no longer move. They had to abandon the carriage and walk. Yuan Baolin and her sister walked in front hand in hand. Gu Chongqing quietly followed behind. As the veil of night descended, row upon row of shops were brightly lit, and the stalls on both sides of the road were hung with dazzling lanterns. At a glance, the dazzling candlelight filled the eyes, and it was like a winding dragon in the night sky. Yuan Baolin looked back from time to time. When she saw him, she would smile at him, and then continue to look at the lanterns with her sister. The three of them walked for a while. On the second floor of a restaurant, someone suddenly stuck half of his body out of the window and called out to Gu Chongqing in surprise. Big brother? Gu Chongqing stopped in his tracks and looked up. Yuan Baolin and her sister also looked at that person. After Yuan Tong saw who it was, her face instantly became disgusted. It's you? Gu Qingfeng's face darkened. Why are you here? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1044863111. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 958. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Yuan Tong raised her head and snorted. I'm accompanying my sister to look at the lanterns. Why can't I be here? Gu Qingfeng's gaze fell on Yuan Baolin's face, and he politely greeted, Sister-in-law. Yuan Baolin smiled. Qingfeng. Come down and greet her, Gu Chongqing said in a low voice. Oh. Gu Chengfeng obediently jumped down from the window and bowed to Yuan Baolin, sister-in-law. Yuan Tong raised her chin and smiled somewhat proudly. Humph. Gu Chengfeng glanced at her and sneered. I didn't greet you again. Gu Chongqing's elder brother Aura was fully released. How can you say that? Gu Chengfeng pursed his lips. Yuan Baolin tried to smooth things over. Chengfeng, are you also here to look at the lanterns? Do you want to join us? Gu Chengfeng's eyes flashed. He wasn't here to look at the lanterns. He was here to carry out a mission. After leaving the capital for many days, the younger generation had risen. If he didn't do something, his position as the #1 thief would be lost. Yuan Baolin saw his hesitation and said generously, If you have something to do, you can go first. Gu Chongqing looked at him coldly. It was as if he was saying, This is your sister-in-law's first time inviting you. Don't you dare refuse. He could pretend to be husband and wife with Yuan Baolin, but that was based on the premise of respect. He wouldn't let Yuan Baolin be treated coldly. Moreover, he broke the promise and let her down first, so he couldn't let her be wronged. After the tacit understanding between the brothers, Gu Chengfeng smiled. I'm fine. I was just thinking, sister-in-law and brother rarely come out. Will I disturb you if I stay here? Yuan Baolin smiled. No, Tonger is here too. Sister, I don't want to. Before Yuan Tong could finish her sentence, Yuan Baolin shot her a dagger-style glare and swallowed her words back. Okay. She reluctantly agreed. The group of people walked forward. Today's lantern festival was very lively. There were people selling lanterns, fighting stages, and even street performers doing acrobatics. In the open space in front of a rice shop, a bare-chested man was holding a sword in one hand and a jug of wine in the other. He raised his head and drank a mouthful of wine without restraint. Then he suddenly raised his head and spat it out. The people who didn't know the truth thought that he was spitting out wine, but they didn't know that he was actually spitting out a long tongue of fire. The crowd exclaimed in surprise. Yuan Tong also clapped her hands in excitement. Gu Chengfeng shook his head. Childish. If that girl was here, she would have seen through the trick. The four of them continued to look at the lanterns. During this time, a small incident occurred. It was that the performer accidentally spat out the flame onto a pedestrian. The pedestrian fled in panic and knocked down the stage they built. The stage fell towards the crowd and was about to hit Yuan Baolin. Gu Chongqing quickly stepped forward and hugged Yuan Baolin. He used his qinggong to bring her away. Sister. Almost at the same time, Yuan Tong also went to save her sister. However, the second stage also fell. Unfortunately, she also fell. Gu Chengfeng frowned. He stepped forward and kicked the stage back. He stood in front of Yuan Tong like a hero. Yuan Tong was still in shock as she looked at his back. Her heart suddenly thumped hard. Gu Chongqing placed Yuan Baolin safely on the side of the street. Wait for me here. Then they went to the scene of the accident. The brothers saved people and put out the fire. When the soldiers heard the news and rushed over, the chaos had almost subsided. Yuan Tong was frightened. Gu Chongqing and Yuan Baolin first sent her back. Gu Chengfeng stayed at the scene to assist in the investigation. In the carriage, Yuan Tong leaned into her sister's arms. Her face was pale. It was obvious that she was frightened. The characters of the two sisters were like this. Yuan Tong looked fierce, but was actually more timid. Yuan Baolin looked quiet, but her heart was calmer and stronger than the average person. Yuan Baolin hugged her sister's shoulder and comforted her. When we go back, I will tell mother. You can sleep with mother for the next 2 nights. Then father will blame me again. If she slept with her mother, her father would have to sleep in the study. Yuan Baolin laughed. Aren't you too timid to sleep? Who said I am timid? Yuan Tong snorted without confidence. She thought of something and stammered. Sister, I have something to ask you. Go ahead, Yuan Baolin said. Yuan Tong's eyes flashed. Brother-in-law's younger brother. Is he going to get married soon? I see that he is not young anymore. I don't know what kind of girl he will marry, and if she is easy to get along with. In the future, you will have to ask her to be your sister-in-law. Yuan Baolin smiled. You are so concerned about me? Yuan Tong said without hesitation. You are my sister. After returning from the Yuan family and entering the new house, Yuan Baolin told Gu Changqing about Gu Qingfeng. Has Chengfeng's marriage been settled? Gu Qingfeng was not young anymore. If it was not for the fact that he was still single, Gu Chengfeng and Gu Qinglin would have been urged to get married. But now that he was married, Gu Qingfeng's marriage should indeed be put on the agenda. Gu Changqing said, I will ask mother another day. Yuan Baolin asked. What I mean is, does he have a sweetheart? Sweetheart? Gu Changqing frowned. I will go ask. At night, Gu Qingfeng returned from a robbery and was in a good mood. As soon as he entered the house, he saw his big brother sitting in his room like a god. He was shocked. Big brother, what are you doing? It is so late. Why are you not going back to accompany sister-in-law? What are you doing in my room? I have something important to ask you, Gu Changqing said. Could it be that he had caught evidence of him being a thief again? Impossible, he was so careful. Gu Qingfeng suppressed his doubts and walked towards his big brother without a change in expression. Big brother, what is so urgent that you have to ask me in the middle of the night? Gu Changqing said. There is no hurry. Your sister-in-law wants to know, so I came. Do you care about sister-in-law that much? Big brother, do you know? Gu Qingfeng chuckled. Big brother, you came just because sister-in-law asked you to. Did you really have a fake marriage with her? Gu Changqing's face darkened. Gu Qingfeng realized that he had spilled the beans and hurriedly covered his mouth with his hand. How did you know? Gu Changqing asked coldly. Gu Qingfeng had kicked an iron plate. He braced himself and said, I just accidentally saw your agreement document in your study. Gu Changqing looked at him suspiciously. I hid it so well. Gu Qingfeng mumbled vaguely. Isn't that the thief Fei Shuang? No matter how well you hid it, I can still find it for you. He felt his big brother's death stare and his body shook. He said seriously, that is not the main point. The main point is that I will definitely keep my mouth shut for big brother. What was done could not be undone. Gu Changqing could not erase this part of his memory. He could only threaten. If you dare to say half a word, I will break your legs. Gu Qingfeng pursed his lips. Because of you, I almost forgot about the important matter. Gu Changqing held his forehead in annoyance. Your sister-in-law wants to know if you have someone you like. Gu Qingfeng sat down on the chair next to his big brother. What? Does sister-in-law want to arrange a marriage for me? Gu Changqing said. Let's assume so. If you don't have any objections. I have objections. Gu Qingfeng interrupted his big brother. Gu Changqing looked at him with a puzzled expression. What objections do you have? Gu Qingfeng's eyes showed a rare seriousness. Big brother, I can listen to you and grandfather on other matters, but on this matter, I want to listen to myself. Gu Changqing paused and his gaze fell on his serious face. You have a girl you like? Who is she from? Tell me, the Marquis Fu will go and propose marriage. No matter what the other party's family background is, as long as you like her, grandfather and I will have no objections. Gu Qingfeng lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, Big brother, I do have someone I like, but this feeling, I can't say it out loud for the rest of my life. You. Gu Changqing did not understand the situation. Second brother had a girl he liked. As the big brother, he did not notice at all. The main thing was that he had never seen his second brother entangled with any girl. He had never heard of it. Which family is she from? Does she not like you? Or is she already engaged? Gu Changqing asked. Big brother, don't ask anymore. Gu Qingfeng raised his head and smiled as if nothing had happened. Anyway, I don't need to inherit the family business. My marriage, just forget about it. Grandfather wants to hold a great-grandson. There is big brother Chenglin, Guyen and Xiaobao. There are so many people to inherit the family name, just spare me. Let him use the rest of his life to protect the girl in his heart. Digression. Big brother and second brother are almost done writing. Xiao Fengfeng does not have a couple. Not every character has a couple. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10448217 HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 959. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. After Gu Chongqing returned to the bridal chamber, he told Yuan Baolin about Gu Qingfeng's situation. Once she heard that he already had someone in his heart, Yuan Baolin knew that her sister's heart was destined to fall for the wrong person. She never suspected that the person in his heart was Yuan Tong, because if it was Yuan Tong, there was no problem of him not being able to declare it. Yuan Baolin's experience as a storyteller told her that Gu Qingfeng must have fallen for someone he should not have. She was very curious, but she would not pry into her brother-in-law's privacy. At night, Gu Xiaobao came over. He was still young and could not leave his mother, so Madame Yao brought him over when she was staying in the residence. Usually he would have gone to bed by this time, but today he slept too much during the day and could not fall asleep, so he came to find his elder brother and sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, I want to see you perform magic. The 2.5-year-old Gu Xiaobao said clearly. On the day of the wedding, Yuan Baolin showed Gu Xiaobao a few small tricks. Gu Xiaobao liked it very much, as he felt that his sister-in-law was better than his elder brother. Okay. Yuan Baolin agreed happily. She took out some small props from her small makeup box and started to perform magic for Gu Xiaobao. The two of them sat cross-legged on the bed. She first showed her hands to Gu Xiaobao. There's nothing, right? Yes. Gu Xiaobao nodded. She snapped her fingers behind Gu Xiaobao's ear, and when she brought her hands in front of Gu Xiaobao, there was a copper coin between her fingers. Gu Xiaobao exclaimed, "Wow!" Gu Chongqing did not have much to do, so he watched from the side to pass the time. The scene of Gu Xiaobao and his sister-in-law getting along was very harmonious, as if they were a real family. Gu Qinglin and Gu Qingfeng lived in the same courtyard, and there was always the sound of them fooling around. He had always lived alone, and the courtyard was especially cold and cheerless. He could only feel the warmth of a home in Jadewater Alley. However, at this moment, for some reason, he suddenly felt a sense of belonging. Yuan Baolin performed a flower blooming out of thin air for Gu Xiaobao. Gu Xiaobao was holding an empty box, but when he opened it after shaking it, there was a beautiful flower inside. Yuan Baolin smiled and said, "This is the flower that Xiaobao conjured using magic." Gu Xiaobao was so excited that he took a few steps back. He opened his arms and patted his chest. Wow, Xiaobao is amazing. He hadn't done this childish act for half a year. He had a lot of fun. A child's drowsiness came at a whim. After a bout of laughter, Gu Xiaobao fell backward and fell asleep. Yuan Baolin, who had never raised a child before, was so scared that she thought she had played with Gu Chongqing's little brother until he fainted. Gu Chongqing doesn't know whether to laugh or cry at her look as if she has been struck by lightning. It's okay. He's just asleep. I'll take him back. Ah, okay. Yuan Baolin wiped away her cold sweat. She was scared to death. Gu Chongqing carried the sleeping Gu Xiaobao back to Yaoshi's courtyard. When he returned, Yuan Baolin was still awake. She was sitting at the table with a document in her hand. He walked over and recognized that it was their prenuptial agreement. He looked at the agreement on the table and frowned. Yuan Baolin saw the shadow on the floor and turned to him. "You're back. Are you free? I have some things to discuss with you." "I'm free." Gu Chongqing sat down opposite her. Yuan Baolin looked at the document on the table and said, "It's this agreement. I read it carefully just now and feel that we drafted it too hastily. There are many areas that we didn't consider. Of course, this isn't your problem, nor is it mine. We haven't been married before and can't predict all kinds of unexpected situations after marriage. At the mention of unexpected situations, Gu Chongqing thought of that indescribable wedding night. As the enchanting scene flashed through his mind, the blood and qi in his body surged. He couldn't think about it. They were just a fake couple. If he thought about such things, it would be blasphemous to Yuan Baolin. He forced himself to calm down and looked at Yuan Baolin. So you mean, she was going to divorce him? Because he was too much of a beast and didn't abide by the agreement, their cooperation would end here? Yuan Baolin looked at the agreement and said, I'm thinking if we should draft a new agreement and clarify some of the general areas. Gu Chongqing, anything is fine. Yuan Baolin looked at him and said, you don't have to agree so quickly. Listen to the details first. Gu Chongqing said calmly, go ahead. The first item, the original agreement was that either party could propose a divorce at any time. But that day, you said that you wouldn't mention it again. Yes, only you can bring this up. He had touched her and violated their agreement, so his rights should be revoked. Yuan Baolin picked up the brush and dipped it in the inkstone. Then I'll write it down. Okay. Gu Chongqing said. After Yuan Baolin finished writing, she continued to read. There's no problem with the second and third items, but the fourth item. Cooperate with each other to the best of your ability and create a harmonious image of a married couple, but do not make excessive demands of each other. We didn't say what kind of demands would be considered excessive at the time. As long as I can do it, you can propose it. Gu Chongqing said and paused before adding, as long as it doesn't violate the country's laws and family rules. Yuan Baolin rolled her eyes. What if you can do it but don't want to? For example, you just came back from the military camp and are very tired. If I ask you to coax me, will you agree? Gu Chongqing thought for a moment. Okay. Even this is okay. Yuan Baolin muttered weakly. She pursed her lips and coughed lightly. She asked seriously, then what if I don't let you take a concubine? Okay. He didn't have the intention to take a concubine. Yuan Baolin was stunned. She looked at him without blinking and said, don't agree too quickly. You have to hesitate a bit. Otherwise, when I write it down, you won't have the leeway to go back on your word. Gu Chongqing met her doe-like eyes and said seriously, I won't go back on my word. Yuan Baolin whispered, do you mean, I can do whatever I want to you? As long as it doesn't violate the country's laws and family rules. Gu Chongqing emphasized. Yuan Baolin said, I know. You're an official of the imperial court. I can't let you kill people or commit arson. Really, you can do anything? And Gu Chongqing nodded. Yuan Baolin's eyes moved again. Including that you can't sleep in the study in the future? Why? Gu Chongqing looked at her in surprise. Yuan Baolin blinked her eyes and confidently said, what else could it be? If you sleep in the study, it will make people think that we don't get along. The servants in the manor will make things difficult for me. They won't dare. Gu Chongqing said. Do you agree or not? Yuan Baolin asked. To be honest, lying in the same bed as her was too much of a test for his endurance as a man. It wasn't like he had any problems in that area. Gu Chongqing took a deep breath and said seriously, I will stay in the military camp in the future. I will only come back during the holidays. But if you insist, I can sleep in your room. Also, don't worry, I won't offend you again. Yuan Baolin sulked. Gu Chongqing saw her reaction and didn't know what he had said wrong. You're not happy? Are you afraid that I can't do it? I said that I will move into the military camp, so I will definitely move in. I said that I won't offend you, so I won't do it again. Yuan Baolin said in a small voice. What if I agree to you offend me? Gu Chongqing looked at her in shock. Yuan Baolin cleared her throat and said in an aggrieved voice, I mean, I've already been offended by you. It will be difficult for me to get married in the future. But to have me be a fake husband and wife for the rest of my life is quite pitiful. You said that you won't leave me, but a man's mouth is a liar. What if one day you don't want to keep your promise and I'm old again? What do you want me to do? Gu Chongqing was a strategist on the battlefield, adaptable, an extraordinary strategist, but in some matters, he was even more stubborn than his grandfather. For example, he once believed that he was a loyalist and never doubted it again until Tang Yueshan mercilessly exposed him. He now also believed that Yuan Baolin had no romantic feelings for him, so no matter how many strange requests Yuan Baolin made or said to him, he only thought that it was necessary for cooperation and forced by the situation. And he was wrong first, so he had no right to bargain with Yuan Baolin. He looked at Yuan Baolin and asked, "What do you want me to do?" Yuan Baolin shyly lowered her head and pinched her handkerchief. She blushed and said, "At least I have to have a child of my own, so that I can have someone to rely on for the rest of my life." Gu Chongqing was stunned. Digression. Little Chongqing, Daddy, what's the longest road in the world? Gu Chongqing, your mother's trick. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1044677762. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 960. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. Ever since Xiao Heng took over the cabinet, he had always done things in a high-profile manner and kept a low profile. He saved as much as he could and never put on airs. But today, for the first time, the Grand Secretary was going to call them one by one into his room for a talk. The 2 secondary assistants, 3 cabinet scholars, and a number of Hall of Governmental Affairs officials all looked at each other as they gathered outside the Grand Secretary's intermediate hall. They didn't understand what was going on today. Did we do something recently that has been used against us? Lu Sifu asked. He had originally been Grand Teacher Zhuang's trusted aide. After Grand Teacher Zhuang was defeated, he abandoned the dark for the light and expressed his sincerity to the emperor. The other secondary assistant surnamed Zhang was removed from his position and investigated because the circumstances were serious. The person who replaced him was surnamed Wu and was selected from the cabinet scholars. Wu Sifu pondered and said, "We haven't done anything recently. Did the Grand Secretary discover that I promoted my own relative?" When the water was too clear, there would be no fish. No dynasty could guarantee that the officials under them were absolutely clean. At most, these people had some petty thoughts and couldn't be considered vermin of the country. Xiao Heng usually opened one eye and turned a blind eye. As long as it wasn't too excessive, he basically didn't interfere. Since the 2 cabinet elders don't understand the situation, then we. The person speaking was the scholar of Wuying Palace, surnamed Kong. There were a total of 6 Grand Secretaries in the cabinet. Only the Grand Secretary and the 2 Vice Secretaries were qualified to be called Cabinet Elder. The other 3 Grand Secretaries from Wuying Palace, Wenyuan Pavilion and East Pavilion, could only be called Junior Cabinet Elder. Yes. Yes. The scholars of the Imperial Library and the East Pavilion sighed and nodded. Lu Sifa said, "Don't worry, the Grand Secretary is not a temperamental person. Presumably, he called us here today to ask about the recent official business." Wu Sifu hurriedly said, That's right. Ever since the Prime Minister's family took office, they have never really been angry with us. Even if something went wrong in our daily life, they would only lightly remind us. Today, maybe something good will happen." "That would be best," Scholar Kong said. Not long after, the Assistant Secretary came out and called Lu Sifu in. Lu Sifu said that he wasn't worried, but when he was really called, his face turned pale. For some reason, he felt that today's posture was too formal. Did something really happen? Was the Grand Secretary going to nurture his own people? Have them privately hand over their allegiance to him? If he didn't submit to the Grand Secretary, Would he be secretly and mercilessly eradicated by the Grand Secretary? He braced himself and entered the Grand Secretary's study. Xiao Heng was sitting in the chair behind the desk. He was the youngest Grand Secretary in the history of the Zhao nation. He was the embodiment of what it meant to be young and accomplished. At the age of 13, he became the Chancellor of the Imperial College. Later, he was assassinated and left to live among the commoners. However, at the age of 18, he returned to the capital as a top scorer. At the age of 19, he became the Grand Secretary of the Imperial College. This was the legend of the Zhao country, and would definitely be recorded in the history books. This lowly official greets my lord. Lu Sifu did not dare to be disrespectful just because the other party was young. Lu Sifu was stunned when he heard a childish voice beside Xiao Heng. His nose was not very good, and did not smell the milky fragrance in the room. However, he was not deaf. He gathered his courage and looked beside the Grand Secretary. Oh my God! 2 babies. Xiao Tsong and Xiao Yin were lying side by side in a cradle by the table. The weather was not so cold, and they were no longer wrapped in swaddling clothes. Xiao Tsong was a quiet and handsome young man as usual. Xiao Yin was eating her hands. The childish voice just now was from her. Are they my lord's little daughter and son? He asked in a daze. Xiao Heng responded indifferently. His expression was very proud. Lu Sifu was stunned. What was going on? You came on duty and brought the babies with you? So why did you ask me to come to your study? Xiao Heng glanced at the secretary beside him. The secretary understood and walked forward with 2 red eggs. He said to Lu Sifu amiably, My lord, these are the red eggs for you. Lu Sifu? He had seen people giving out eggs 2 days after giving birth. But had he seen people still giving out red eggs 2 months after giving birth? Xiao Heng said without changing his expression. It's mainly because I forgot to give them last time. This time, I will make it up to you. Lu Sifu, after all this time, you just want to give out red eggs? You should have said so earlier. Look at how scared everyone is. Are they cute? Xiao Heng asked seriously. Cute. Lu Sifu was about to doubt his life. It was not enough for your father to show off his daughter, and now you want to show off your twins? What is wrong with your family? The second person to be called in was Wu Sifu. He also liked to give out 2 red eggs and praise the twins with a basket of auspicious words. He could not be the same as Lu Sifu's. The Grand Secretaries of the Imperial Cabinet were subjected to the first literary examination of the year, praising the twins in fancy ways. Gu Chongqing's marriage came to an end. Gu Jiao planned to set off for Dark Night Island. Xiao Heng would go with her, and Duke Anguo would also return to the Yan Kingdom. Their plan was to stay in Chengdu for a while. Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng only needed to cross the ice fields before the extreme weather in October. The only problem in front of them now was that the 2 children were too young. Could they adapt to such an intense journey? Princess residence. The whole family sat in Princess Xinyang's room. Princess Xinyang said, It rains a lot in April, so it's not suitable to travel by water. You can only travel by land. It's too bumpy to take a carriage. Yen and Song are only 2 months old. Gu Jiao was silent. This was indeed a very realistic problem. It was too hard for 2-month-old children to take a carriage. Especially in the Yan Kingdom. The weather was hot. May was like midsummer. Being cooped up in a carriage all day was as scary as being placed in a steamer. Xiao Ji had always been very good at raising children. This time he agreed with Qin Fengwan's worries. It was too torturous to let such young twins travel. Princess Xinyang looked at Gu Jiao and Xiao Heng and said, You can either wait until the children are older and go next year. Or you can leave the children here. I'll take good care of them. Her godfather's bones were still buried on Dark Night Island. Gu Jiao had already waited for a year. She couldn't let herself wait for a second year. Besides, even if the twins were a year older, they were still not suitable for a long journey. Gu Jiao looked at Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng said softly, You decide. Gu Jiao said, Then let's leave the children in the capital. Xiao Heng held her hand. You won't miss them? Gu Jiao thought for a moment. I'm fine. What about you? Xiao Heng stroked her hair and said calmly, Of course I'm fine. Once they returned to Lanting Courtyard, Xiaoheng went into his room and locked the door. He hugged the twins and didn't let go, his eyes red. They had prepared everything for the trip several months ago, so they could set off at any time. The two first entered the palace to bid farewell to their grandaunt. It was true that their grandaunt hoped to keep them by her side forever, but the children had grown up. They had to go out to explore and complete their own life's mission. What she needed to do was to guard their home and wait for their return each time. After leaving the imperial palace, the young couple went to Jade Water Alley and Marquis Ding An's manor to bid farewell. By the time they returned to the princess residence, it was already dark. However, it was on this night that something unexpected happened. The twins had disappeared. Whoa, it's all my fault. I didn't keep an eye on the young master and young miss. Yuya was sobbing at the door, gasping for breath. Gu Jiao didn't blame her. Instead, she calmly asked, "Don't cry first. What happened? Tell me in detail." Yuya narrated everything that had happened tonight in full detail. The twins stayed at Princess Xianyang's place for an entire day. She only brought them back when night fell. The twins were very energetic and didn't have any intention of sleeping. She placed them together on Xiaoheng and Gu Jiao's bed, wanting them to play for a while. She was in her room making knots. The kitchen staff came over and asked her if she wanted to prepare a midnight snack for the young Marquis and young Madam. She went out and told that person about a few snacks that the two liked to eat. At that time, I was standing at the door. Here. Yuya pointed at the place where she had spoken with the kitchen staff and cried. I didn't expect that in such a short time. When I entered the room again, Yener and Song were gone. Was Longyi in the residence at that time? Xiaoheng asked. Yuya wiped her tears and pointed forward. He was in the courtyard sharpening charcoal. After Yener and Song disappeared, he went out to look for them. Someone had sneaked into the residence and stolen the twins. This was the first reaction of the two. But judging from the place Yuya was pointing at, Longyi was facing the door at that time. No assassin could sneak into the courtyard under Longyi's nose, let alone steal the twins. Xiaoheng entered the room and carefully inspected it. He concluded, there was no fourth person who came in. The three people were Yuya and the twins. Gu Jiao frowned. Since no one came, how did Yener and Song disappear? Xiaoheng's gaze fell on the bedside table. I remember that when you went out this morning, you left the small medicine box here. Gu Jiao nodded. Yes, the small medicine box is also gone. Known. It was impossible to steal the small medicine box. So it was the small medicine box that stole the twins. Gu Jiao exploded on the spot. She clenched her small fists and her face darkened on the spot. State Preceptor Hall. A young man wearing a white crescent state preceptor robe stepped into the Qilin Hall. The disciples on duty in the hall saluted him. State Preceptor. Yi Qing nodded. He was wearing a mourning ring on his arm, but no one knew who it was for. He walked through the long aisle on the right side of the Qilin Hall and came to the front of the secret room at the end. He said to the two men guarding the secret room, I'll go in and clean up. You open the door. Yes. State Preceptor. The two men obeyed the instructions of the newly appointed young State Preceptor and took out the key to open the secret room. Yi Qing stepped into the place that his master had told him to guard for the rest of his life. However, as soon as he lit up the oil lamp, he saw that the place that was supposed to be empty was actually filled with two adorable little babies. He was shocked, his legs went soft, and he fell to the ground. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. The novels that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/10446423. HTML Genius remembered the address of this site in a second. www.zhbqg.com Pen Fun Pavilion mobile version reading website. Chapter 961. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all here. After Shang Guanyin ascended the throne, she changed the name of the emperor's bedroom to Fenglin Palace. The peak of April was the mildest time of the year, neither hot nor cold, neither dry nor humid. Shang Guanyin was sitting in the study room of Fenglin Palace, reviewing memorials. On her desk, there were 2 picture frames that Gu Jiao asked the Shadow Division to bring from Zhao country. Inside, there were portraits of twins. Every time she was mentally and physically exhausted by the matters of the imperial court, she only needed to look at the portraits of the twins to feel all of her fatigue vanish into thin air. She looked at the twins, and her eyes flashed with a touch of doting and longing. She was born for so long, but she still hasn't seen the 2 little guys. She heard that Jiao Jiao and Aheng were coming to Yan country, but the twins were still small and couldn't stand the long distance. They should stay in Zhao country. It was really regrettable that she couldn't see them when they were young. Shang Guanyin sighed. Suddenly, Wu Cixi walked in with small steps and bowed. "Your Majesty." Shang Guanyin looked at his expression and knew that someone else came. She helplessly said, "Who is it this time?" The beauties in the harem were really restless. Every night, they would make all kinds of chance encounters, or they would recommend themselves to the bed. When she was the Empress Dowager, she thought that only women were difficult to deal with. When she became the emperor, she found that men were enchanting and there was basically nothing for women to do. There were a few little demons who looked very attractive. Wu Cixi smiled and said, "It's State Preceptor." Shang Guanyin's pen movement paused. "Yi Qing?" A quarter of an hour later, Yi Qing came to Shang Guanyin's study with a baby in his left hand and a baby in his right hand. Those who knew said that he had something to do, but those who didn't know thought that he brought the baby to the door and called Shang Guanyin to be responsible for him and the baby. Everyone in Fenglin Palace was dumbfounded. No wonder Her Majesty was indifferent to all kinds of handsome men in the harem. It turned out that State Preceptor Yi, this coquettish bitch, got there first. "Yi Qing, what are you doing?" Shang Guanyin expressed that she was also very confused. In the middle of the night, a man came looking for her with a child, and even showed an indescribable expression. No matter how she thought about it, it was so scary. "I won't really do anything to you, right? You gave birth to the child? You went to the Dark Night Island and didn't come back for so long. Were you hiding for 10 months to give birth alone?" Shang Guanyin's mind flashed with an absurd conjecture, and she couldn't help but be shocked. She shook her head like a rattledrum, waiting for Yi Qing to give her a reasonable explanation. Yi Qing gently put the child on the table, took out the small medicine box from the basket, and put it on the table. Then Shang Guanyin was dumbfounded again. First of all, she had a portrait of the twins. She looked at it day and night, and had long imprinted their appearance in her mind. Of course, there was a difference between a portrait and a real person, but the difference between people was not that big. 2 little guys. One was a replica of little Jiao Jiao, and the other was a replica of little Aheng. They were the biological ones, right? Looking at the small medicine box again, it was clearly Gu Jiao's. There was no mistake, right? Jiao Jiao and Aheng came? Shang Guanyin excitedly asked. Yi Qing was scared. He hated that half of his soul had not returned to his body. He expressionlessly said, "No, only the 2 of them came." Shang Guanyin, Zhao country, Princess's manor. Gu Jiao's murderous aura filled the entire manor. Even Xiaoheng did not dare to provoke her. Her small fists were clenched. "I think you want to be chopped up and burned as firewood." There was no need to guess where the small medicine box took the child. The State Teacher Hall's operating room, but a pack of spicy strips. She was not worried that no one would find out. The operating room was guarded by death soldiers. When the child cried inside, Yi Qing would be called. This small medicine box is getting more and more naughty, and its ability is getting bigger and bigger. Clearly, it could only teleport itself in the past, but now it can carry the twins. Does this mean that its energy is also recovering little by little? The reason for this doubt was that Gu Jiao began to suspect a long time ago that tearing space was not an easy task for the small medicine box. It may consume all of its energy. This was probably why she had seen a small, tattered medicine box when she had first arrived. Gu Jiao rested her chin on her hands and muttered, "So, what is the origin of the small medicine box? How many surprises will there be after it recovers to 100%? Oh, it could also be a scare. Because the twins set off early, the original departure 3 days later was changed to early morning. Mother, don't worry about me too much, I will soon." Xiao Heng had not finished his reluctant farewell when Princess Xianyang threw his bag into the carriage. "When you return to Zhao country, remember to bring Yan and Songer back." "Xiao Heng, am I still the most beloved son in your heart? So love will disappear, right?" On the other side, Chang Kuan and Chang Jing also planned to set off. Chang Kuan and Marquis Xianping fought. The reason was that Marquis Xianping asked Chang Kuan to bring back the betrothal gifts. He did not have a daughter to marry Chang Jing. Chang Kuan said that the Dark Knight Island did not mind waiting for Xiao Yi to grow up. Then he was beaten by Marquis Xianping. Chang Kuan limped out with a big bump on his head. His face was bruised and swollen as he said to Chang Jing, "Your father, I for your marriage. I didn't even fight back." Chang Jing said unjustly, "I didn't say I was going to marry her, didn't I lie to you? I just wanted to leave the island." The next second, Chang Jing was also beaten. After growing up, he finally got beaten by his old father. The father and son sat face to face in the carriage, each holding a piece of ice wrapped in a handkerchief and sticking it to their swollen faces. Xiao Yi, who was 1 year and 4 months old, was held in Princess Xianyang's arms. She waved goodbye to them. "Uncle Chang Chang, see you. Brother Chang Chang Jing, see you." She wanted to say goodbye, but she was still young and could not express herself properly. The two of them also waved goodbye to her. Xiao Yi liked Chang Jing very much, but Chang Jing was too ugly after being beaten up. Xiao Yi cried because of his ugliness. Not long after, Duke An's carriage also arrived. Little Jing Kong jumped down from the carriage and clattered onto Gu Jiao's carriage. "Jiao Jiao, I've brought Daddy over." The way he addressed her changed according to how Gu Jiao addressed him. After Gu Jiao called Duke and father, little Jing Kong also changed the way he addressed him. Gu Jiao looked at the handsome little face in front of her and smiled. "Jing Kong is great." "Xiao Heng, haha, you're almost 8 years old. It's shameful to act cute." Xiao Heng asked indifferently, "You're going to the Yen Kingdom too?" Little Jing Kong said with arms akimbo, "Of course I'm going. Where did Jiao Jiao go?" "I'm going there." Xiao Heng said indifferently, "Don't you need to study?" Little Jing Kong said, "You're there." Xiao Heng's mouth twitched. "Don't you need to practice martial arts?" Little Jing Kong spread his hands and smiled. "Long Yi is there." Xiao Heng was speechless. His whole family was full of big shots and had great resources. Little Jing Kong still akimbo and said arrogantly, "Humph! Don't you think you can monopolize Jiao Jiao?" Xiao Heng didn't argue with him but said calmly, "Little Shi." The Horse King rushed over like lightning and made a sharp turn at the gate of the mansion. The horse's hooves were split. Little Jing Kong's attention was successfully attracted. "Eh? Little Shi is here. Jiao Jiao, can I ride Little Shi?" "Okay." Gu Jiao replied. Someone who didn't know that he was tricked by his bad brother-in-law valiantly rode Little Shi. The Black Wind King led the entire convoy. His eyes were cold, and his aura was powerful. Even though he wasn't going to war, he was still exuding a murderous aura, even though he was just strolling through the busy streets. It was 17 years old. Fortunately, it hadn't aged and could create more legends. Gu Jiao didn't allow the horse to ride on the street. Little Jing Kong and the Horse King couldn't bear it anymore. They finally got out of the capital city. One man and one horse decisively galloped on the open and flat official road. Little Shi. Just a little faster. Faster. Wah! I'm flying. Ha ha ha. Bad brother-in-law can't catch up. The whole official road was filled with his little demonic voice. Horse King. Shen wants to remind you, Jiao Jiao can't catch up either. Little Jing Kong didn't show off for long. It rained heavily and 1 man and 1 horse were drenched. This year, the rain was especially heavy. After it rained in Zhao country, it rained in Yan country, and after it rained in Zhongzhou. Even Manager Zheng's old legs were getting cold. Just as the group of people were bitterly rushing on the road, the twins were comfortably lying in Yan country's most magnificent Fenglin palace. They slept on soft and warm mattresses, covered with light and smooth quilts, and enjoyed the super luxurious treatment of 10 wet nurses. It's just that they were used to drinking milk powder, and refused to drink breast milk. The wet nurses were only responsible for coaxing them to sleep. Originally, Shang Guanyan and Yi Qing were worried about the children's rations. Who would have thought that Yi Qing accidentally knocked the small medicine box off the table? The small medicine box fell to the ground and spat out a can of milk powder. Then, it smacked its lips and spat out 2 milk bottles. The stunned Yi Qing. Digression. At 6 in the evening, after eating a bowl of white rice, a plate of stir-fried pork with vegetables, and 20 Arctic sweet shrimps, I was hungry in less than 2 hours. I want to eat braised pork knuckles. Steaming, soft, and the kind that melts in the mouth. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/104449399. HTML Genius memorized this site's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 962. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. More novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. After Shang Guanqing returned to the Yan kingdom, Shang Guanyan conferred him the title of the eldest son of the emperor. The people had never seen the former eldest son of the emperor, so they didn't know the change in his appearance. Therefore, they didn't have any doubts about the imperial edict. As for the people who had seen him, the enemies like Gongsun Yu were already dead. As for the people who were on his side like Wenren Chong, they were all the confidants of the Xianyuan family and the State Master Hall. They wouldn't spread the news that was unfavorable to Shang Guanqing. As for Taoist Qing Feng and Wang Su, the former was face-blind and couldn't remember his appearance. As for the latter, Shang Guanqing chose to tell the truth. That's about it. My mother was worried that the State Master Hall wouldn't treat me if my identity was exposed. So she asked me to wear my brother's face. On a black awning boat in the Imperial Palace's supreme liquid pool, Shang Guanqing put his hands behind his head and looked up at the starry sky. Wang Su sat beside him. After hearing the whole truth, he couldn't calm down for a long time. So, the eldest son of the emperor I saw in the State Master Hall was not you? Shang Guanqing held a green foxtail in his mouth and said casually, "It was my brother." Wang Su stood up with a swoosh. His movement was so big that the whole boat shook. Shang Guanqing looked at him in astonishment. He said sadly, "How could you do this?" "Ha!" Shang Guanqing was stunned. "It's my fault for hiding it from you," Wang Su said bitterly. "You betrayed me. You told your brother our secret signal." Shang Guanqing was speechless. "Isn't your point a bit off?" He wanted to say that he didn't tell them. These secret signals were all guessed by themselves. Besides, it wasn't their secret. He learned it from the State Master. He couldn't guarantee that the State Master didn't tell others. He looked at Wang Su embarrassedly. "Old Wang, you've changed." Wang Su clenched his fists tightly and turned his face away. "You used to call me Old Wang next door." Shang Guanqing was speechless. Lao Wang was too difficult to coax. After coming ashore from the supreme liquid pool, Shang Guanqing felt that his vitality was severely overdrawn. He didn't even want to walk. He ordered the palace servants to bring a sedan chair, and sat on it to Fenglin Palace. In the Yan Kingdom, adult princes had to leave the palace and build another mansion. This was a rule set by the ancestors, and also to avoid suspicion with the concubines in the harem. However, the beauties in this harem were all men. What was there for Shang Guanqing to avoid? He settled down in the palace. He planned to first go to his mother's place to pay his respects and freeload a midnight snack on the way. Who would have thought that as soon as he entered Shang Guanyan's bedroom, he smelled a milky fragrance, followed by a burst of babbling sounds. He frowned and walked toward the inner hall with a strange expression. He saw his mother sitting on the bright yellow dragon bed, holding a baby in her arms, feeding him with a milk bottle. Yi Qing sat on a stool beside the bed, also holding a baby and feeding him with a milk bottle. His hair stood on end. It can't be right? I just went out for a while. Mother, you and Yi Qing already have a family of 4. You don't want so many beauties in the harem, so you like Yi Qing. He had to say that in this regard, the mother and son's brain circuits were the same. Mother. He was so scared that his voice was muffled. Shang Guanyan smiled at him. Come here and see your little nephew and niece. It turned out that it was not a younger brother or sister, but a nephew and niece. He breathed a sigh of relief and almost thought that Yi Qing had become his father. His little nephew and niece only had a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. He strode over and asked excitedly, Stinky brother is here? Shang Guanyan repeated Yi Qing's words one by one. No, only the 2 of them are here. Shang Guanqing. The dragon and phoenix twins began their life in the great Yan imperial palace. Shang Guanyan would never wrong her pair of little grandsons. The next day, she took the twins to the court and publicly announced that she had found the long-lost second prince Shang Guanheng not long ago. She conferred the son of the second prince as the Prince of Yongla, and conferred the daughter of the second prince as the Princess of Kongning. The great Yan welcomed the imperial grandsons of the Dragon and Phoenix Emperor. As a result, before the father could enjoy the treatment of a prince for even a day, the twins had already become imperial grandsons who were greatly favored by the emperor. Gu Jiao and Xiaoheng arrived in Chengdu at the end of June. Because of the bad weather, the journey that could have been finished in 1.5 months took an extra month. When Wu Cixi went to the palace gate to greet the second prince and the young commander, he almost didn't recognize them. Was this swarthy Xiao He couple really the handsome little master, as well as the little commander who was said to have recovered her devastatingly beautiful appearance? Xiaoheng said with no love for life. Just now a charcoal chariot. Overturned. The 2 people first sent Dukan back to his mansion before entering the palace. On the way, little Shi knocked over a charcoal chariot, covering the 2 people's faces with dust. However, it was true that the 2 people were tanned and lost weight. Wu Cixi invited the 2 people to Fenglin Palace. His Majesty is in the court, and will come over in a moment. Young prince and young princess can enjoy the cool air in the pavilion. The 2 people went to the pavilion. Little Milk Bun was born on the 9th of February. Now he was almost 5 months old. He was white and chubby, and his little arms and legs were like lotus roots. Moreover, because Long Yi didn't give Xiao Yin a midnight meal, and Xiao Yi snatched food from Xiao Tsong, Xiao Tsong gradually caught up with Xiao Yan. Although Xiao Tsong tried very hard to be a quiet and beautiful little boy, the instinct of a baby made him move his little arms and legs from time to time. In particular, there was a strange telepathy between the twins. Often, when Xiao Yan called out, he would also uncontrollably make a sound. The 2 people happened to hear Xiao Tsong's sound, and the exhaustion of the journey disappeared in a puff of smoke. They thought that after being separated for so long, the twins wouldn't recognize them, but who would have thought that they weren't? When the 2 of them washed up and appeared in front of the twins burst into tears. At this time, they finally knew that they were missing their parents. Gu Jiao turned around and saw that Xiaoheng's eyes were also red. Gu Jiao. A person's temperament would undergo a series of changes along with the change of status. Since Shang Guanyan ascended the throne as the empress, she also imperceptibly had the majesty and fierceness of a ruler. She knew that this dynasty was unfair to women. At that time, she was able to become the Empress Dowager because of favorable conditions. First, her father was tyrannical enough to suppress his anger. Second, she was the only legitimate child of the Empress. Third, Xianyuan family was strong enough to give her strong support. But that feeling of dissatisfaction had always been there. After she ascended the throne, these problems gradually surfaced. She couldn't show the slightest weakness, otherwise, she would be bitten by others. Only in front of people that she truly trusted and cared about would she remove her disguise. Aheng. She came to the entrance of the bedroom and saw Xiaoheng playing with the twins. The murderous aura of an emperor faded, and endless gentleness filled her eyes. Xiaoheng turned his head and looked at her with a slight smile. Mother. Sheng Guanyan's eyes became moist. Sheng Guanqing did not know that his stinky younger brother had entered the palace today. He went out to play. Sheng Guanyan and the young couple ate lunch in Fenglin Palace. This was the first time that Sheng Guanyan saw Gu Jiao without the birthmark. She was shocked. Although she guessed that Gu Jiao would be very beautiful without the birthmark, she never thought that she would be so beautiful. If she went to the military camp like this, those young men would go crazy, right? Jiao Jiao eat. Sheng Guanyan gave Gu Jiao a piece of soft rock sugar pork shoulder. Aheng said that you like to eat this. Gu Jiao tasted it. The sauce was very thick with rock sugar and braised ingredients. Coupled with a handful of red pepper, the taste was completely immersed in the meat. Although it was spicy, it was sweet and not greasy, spicy and not dry. Gu Jiao liked it very much. Thinking of something, Gu Jiao asked her. Right, mother, how is your injury? Does it still hurt? Xiaoheng looked at Sheng Guanyan. Gu Jiao was referring to the 8 nails in her back. Sheng Guanyan shook her head. It didn't hurt a long time ago. I don't feel any different from before. Gu Jiao said. Then let's go to the Imperial Tutor's Hall in a while. I will take out the screws for you. Sheng Guanyan thought for a while. Does it hurt? Gu Jiao said. I used anesthetics, it doesn't hurt. In the afternoon, the 3 went to the Imperial Tutor's Hall. He came to meet the 3 people. When he saw Gu Jiao, he didn't dare to recognize her. Of course, he already knew Gu Jiao's true identity from his senior brother. He also heard that Gu Jiao had recovered her appearance. But wasn't this recovery a bit too much? Was she really not a fairy that descended to the world? Gu Jiao curved her lips. Long time no see, little master Yuhi. Her voice was also different. When Gu Jiao was dressed as a man, she used a young man's voice. Yuhi was shocked to the extreme, but fortunately Yi Qing came over. Yi Qing took them to the secret room. Sheng Guanyan's condition was good. All the test results were normal. The operation to remove the pedicle screws was also very successful. Sheng Guanyan stayed in the operating room for observation for 24 hours. Xiaoheng accompanied her. Gu Jiao came out of the secret room and said to Yi Qing, who was guarding the door, Take me to pay respects to your master. Yi Qing was stunned. He opened his mouth. You? Gu Jiao's eyes swept over the mourning cloth on his arm. Let's go. Yi Qing's throat slid, the emotions in his chest rolled, his throat swelled, and suddenly an impulse to cry. He didn't ask how Gu Jiao guessed. If she didn't have such a clever mind, she couldn't have become the first Lord of the Shadows. He took Gu Jiao to the purple bamboo forest. The small study there was carefully tidied up. Except for the small clay figurines and portraits that were given to Gu Jiao, the rest of the furnishings were unchanged. Jing Yinin's graffiti was also there. As if this person didn't disappear from their side, he still lived in their lives. Just by looking back, they could see a certain sage-like state preceptor standing at the door. Gu Jiao stroked Jing Yinin's picture album. Did your master pass away peacefully? Yi Qing said sadly. I heard from you that he was very peaceful. He lied to Gu Jiao. In fact, he didn't see his master for the last time. The person who went to the Dark Night Island to find him was not his master, but he who held his master's letter. Gu Jiao whispered. Is it for Xianyuan Qi? Xianyuan Qi's life had come to an end in Ghost Mountain. In the Battle of Puqing City, he had exhausted all his strength. He could survive and get better day by day. Perhaps it was not only a miracle created by the purple grass poison. Yi Qing choked and nodded. Master said that he was sorry for the Xianyuan family, and he paid his life to Xianyuan Qi. It was also atonement to the Xianyuan family. It was only later that he understood why his master asked him to go to the border, and even gave him the purple grass poison. His master had predicted Xian Yuanqi's fate, and also predicted his character. He would not leave Xian Yuanqi in the lurch. Everything was in his master's plan. From the day he left the state preceptor's hall for the border, his master had been waiting for death peacefully in Xingdu. Gu Jiao murmured. No wonder when I saw him after coming back from the border, he was so old. He changed Xian Yuanqi's fate, and exhausted his life. Yi Qing turned around and wiped his tears. After calming down, he said to Gu Jiao, Master knows that you are Jing Yinin. He told Xian Yuanli that when Yinin was a child, Marshal Xian Yuan always secretly took her home for this reason. It was the greatest wish of Master and Marshal Xian Yuan to watch the Lord of Shadows grow up. Gu Jiao understood a lot in an instant. Was it because of this that Xian Yuanli melted his armor and gave it to Jing Yinin? Was it also because of this that he insisted on letting Jing Yinin practice martial arts no matter how weak she was when she was a child? Yi Qing thought of his master, and tears came out involuntarily again. Master said that he couldn't protect Yinin well, but they all hoped to protect you. He changed Xian Yuanqi's fate not only because he owed the Xian Yuan family, but also because he hoped that there could be someone stronger than himself in this world to protect you. Gu Jiao stroked the two words Yinin, inscribed by the state preceptor on the picture album. She raised her hand and pressed her heart, suddenly feeling a little uncomfortable here. Digression. After the state preceptor's explanation, the Dark Knight Island's explanation is also done. Little Jing Kong is about to grow up. Little Jing Kong's length is a little longer, but it is a complete story. I will indicate it in the title. Whose story do you like to read? You can read it according to the title. Yes. I'm not pregnant with a baby. It's autumn, and people's appetite is really strong. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/10444482. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile version reading website. Chapter 963. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. After paying respects to the state preceptor in the purple bamboo forest, Gu Jiao went to the operating room to check on Sheng Guanyan's situation. Sheng Guanyan fell asleep. Xiao Heng said that she didn't feel any discomfort, but she was a little hungry. When mother wakes up, she can eat some porridge. Gu Jiao said, and then said, I'll go to Guogongfu. I promised Jing Kong to pick him up tonight. Little Jing Kong and Long Yi accompanied Guogongfu back home. Xiao Heng raised his hand to tidy up the hair on her temples. I'll pick you up later. Okay. Gu Jiao responded and turned out of the operating room. Jiao Jiao. Xiao Heng softly called her. Are you okay? Gu Jiao didn't tell Xiao Heng about the state preceptor, but since Gu Jiao could guess it, Xiao Heng naturally couldn't be unaware. Her emotions were lighter than ordinary people, but as long as she cared about a person, even the slightest emotion couldn't escape her eyes. Gu Jiao paused at the door, suddenly turned around, walked in front of him, and put her forehead on his strong chest. Every time she was depressed, she would seek comfort in his arms in this way. Xiao Heng gently wrapped his arm around her slender waist and stroked her head comfortingly with his other hand. In fact, even if Xiao Heng didn't find out, she could deal with her emotions. But he always found out and comforted her in time. He never said a word to her not to be sad. She was also a human. She could be sad. She could be sad. She didn't need to be so strong. Sheng Guanyan slept for the whole afternoon, and finally woke up. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw her son and daughter-in-law hugging each other. She opened her mouth. Well, she was full. She was full of dog food. Xiao Heng hugged Gu Jiao and comforted her. Gu Jiao's forehead was still pressed against his warm and firm chest, a pair of white hands pinching his belt. This was a sign that her mood had improved. Mother is awake, she whispered. Xiao Heng's eyes flickered and his eyelashes trembled. I'm leaving. Gu Jiao curled her lips wickedly and turned to leave the operating theater, leaving Xiao Heng alone to face the awkward scene of the bag being grabbed. Gu Jiao rode on Black Wind King's horse. She had also ridden the Black Wind King in Zhao country, but it felt different. The familiar streets, the familiar atmosphere, and the sound of heavy traffic evoked endless memories. The Heavenly Fragrance Academy, the archery tournament, the selection of the Black Wind Cavalry's commander. Everything was still vivid in his mind, as if it had happened yesterday. Gu Jiao patted Black Wind King's neck and said, Boss, let's go to the Duke's public house. Black Wind King galloped with Gu Jiao on the familiar streets. Its aura was too strong and could easily scare other horses, so it tried to avoid the crowd and walked through empty alleys. When one person and one horse walked halfway, a broken tile suddenly flew in front of them. Seeing that it was about to hit Gu Jiao, Black Wind King turned right and agilely dodged. Then more and more tiles and even hidden weapons came one after another. Someone was fighting. Where do you think you're going? Today either you die or I die. Gu Jiao frowned. This voice, boss. She held the reins tightly and her eyes were like torches. Black Wind King, and she had a tacit understanding from the battlefield. It sped up and galloped forward like lightning. It was a dilapidated alley. A third of the wall at the end had collapsed, but it was still taller than a person. Gu Jiao tightened her grip on the horse's belly and lifted it slightly. Black Wind King jumped over the wall. Gu Jiao did not bring the red tasseled spear, but she had other weapons with her. She untied the whip that was wrapped around her waist, and with a wave of her hand, she swung it at the two people who were fighting with each other. The black-clothed man seemed to have the upper hand. He thrust his sword at the veiled woman on the ground, but before he knew it, his wrist holding the sword was suddenly grabbed by a powerful force. He was shocked and turned his head to look. Black Wind King raised its front hooves and stomped on him. He tried to pull the owner of the whip off the horse, but he obviously did not have the strength to do so. He could only choose to dodge to the side. On the surface, it looked like he had dodged the attack. However, Gu Jiao pulled with a backhand motion, sending him flying into the air and slamming him against the thick wall. Ah! The man in black felt a sharp pain in his chest and back. He screamed as he fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Gu Jiao jumped off the horse. When he was about to get up, she stepped on his chest and mercilessly stomped him back to the ground. The man in black felt like all the bones in his body were broken. His head hit the ground and his brain was almost scattered. Gu Jiao ignored his pain and turned to look at the woman on the side. Teacher's wife Nan, are you all right? That's right. The person being chased by the man in black was Teacher's wife Nan, who she had not seen in a long time. When Teacher's wife Nan heard Gu Jiao's voice, she couldn't help being stunned. She looked at Gu Jiao's face and didn't dare to recognize her. It's me, Teacher's wife Nan. Gu Jiao said. Teacher's wife Nan's eyes almost popped out. Jiao Jiao? Your face. Oh, the birthmark is gone. Gu Jiao said. She glanced at the man in black under her feet and asked, Teacher's wife Nan, who is he? Teacher's wife Nan stood up with the help of the wall. She patted the dust off her body and came to Gu Jiao's side. He's from the Tang sect. Then, she moved her fingertips and shot out a poisonous needle, sealing the man's throat. Gu Jiao took her foot back and asked Teacher's wife Nan. Teacher's wife, what's going on? Earlier, you said that you would stay in Shengdu to deal with some personal matters. Is it related to the Tang sect? Teacher's wife Nan sighed helplessly. It's a long story. Gu Jiao looked around. Where's Master Lu? Teacher's wife Nan said. He went to kill another disciple of the Tang sect. I arranged to meet him at Li's tea house. Gu Jiao knew that tea house. She had brought little Jing Kong there to eat the snacks. It was 3 miles away on Bailuo Street. She said, I'll accompany Teacher's wife Nan to wait for Master Lu. Teacher's wife Nan asked, will it delay you? No. Gu Jiao shook her head. She had to prioritize things. She believed that little Jing Kong would not be angry. The two rode the Black Wind King to Li's tea house and asked for a room on the second floor facing the street. Gu Jiao opened the window and sat beside it with teacher's wife Nan. The view here was very good. They could see the whole street. If Master Lu came nearby, they could see him at first glance. Gu Jiao poured a cup of tea for teacher's wife Nan. Right, Jiao Jiao, why did you come to Yin country? Also your birthmark, how did it disappear? I heard that you and Ahing got married. It's a pity that I couldn't attend your wedding. I'm really sorry. Teacher's wife Nan had too many things to say. She was not only concerned about Gu Jiao and Xiao Hing's situation, but also Miss Gu Xiaoshan and Gu Yan. Actually, it's not a birthmark. It's a mark of chastity. Gu Jiao told her the abbot's drunken blunder. After teacher's wife Nan heard it, she did not know what to say. After that, Gu Jiao told her about the other people's recent situation. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan were studying at Qinghe Academy. Gu Chengfeng was a captain in the military camp and did not go to the academy. They would all study martial arts in the future. Gu Chongqing inherited the Gu family army and married Yuan Baolin. Xiao Heng became a junior advisor in July last year. At the end of the year, Grand Secretary Yuan's health was not good, and he handed in his resignation document. In February this year, Xiao Heng took over the position of Grand Secretary. Grandmother-in-law and son-in-law were very healthy. Grandmother-in-law returned to his original position and often visited the imperial palace. Gu Xiaobao was 2.5 years old. He was a lazy and smart child. Yao Shi was also doing well. Ahing and Jing Kong also came. Ahing is in the imperial palace. Jing Kong is in Duke N's manor. Gu Jiao spoke in detail, slow and patient. Seeing that everyone was well, teacher's wife Nan was very happy. That's good, that's good. But teacher's wife Nan, what's the situation on your side? Huh? Teacher's wife Nan touched her face with her veil. Speaking of which, it's an old grudge. That year, I left the Tang sect because my martial arts were crippled. I did not owe the Tang sect anything. I naively thought that the Tang sect would do as they said and would not make things difficult for me. Later on, I went to Zhao country and got to know your Master Lu. Speaking to this point, she paused then smiled slightly. You might have guessed it. Master Lu is Zhao country's Master Lu. He once received a favor from Elder Feng. At the time, Ahing came to him and had your Master Lu take Xiaoshan and a Yan as disciples and he agreed. Gu Jiao had indeed guessed this about Master Lu's identity. Thus, hearing what teacher's wife Nan said, she did not feel too surprised. Teacher's wife Nan recalled and said, when I first got together with your Master Lu, my face was not disfigured. Unfortunately, I was noticed by the Emperor of Zhao country when I was sightseeing. I don't know what the Emperor of Zhao country was thinking. He clearly knew that I was already someone's wife, but he still invited the two of us into the imperial palace. He hosted a banquet in the imperial garden for the two of us. During the banquet, everyone drank a bit of wine. I went to the pavilion to the side to sober up, and did not think that I would offend Empress Xiao. What happened after that? Gu Jiao asked. Teacher's wife Nan picked up her teacup and smiled bitterly. After that, we left the banquet. On the way back, your Master Lu and I encountered an assassination attempt. My face was disfigured at that time. The culprit escaped without a trace, and I have not been able to find them after so many years. Gu Jiao rubbed her chin. Normal people would probably think that it was done by Empress Xiao. Teacher's wife Nan nodded. That's right. Your Master Lu and I suspected it at first, but so what if we suspected her? She is the Empress of Zhao country, and is the younger sister of Marquis Xianping. We are alone and weak, so we could not do anything to her. Your Master Lu hates Empress Xiao and also hates the source of the tragedy, the Emperor of Zhao country. If it was not for him coveting my beauty and inviting the two of us into the palace, I would not have offended Empress Xiao. He no longer works for the court, and has been living in seclusion ever since. Not long after you left for battle last year, I once again encountered the culprit that had disfigured me. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all the novels that you can't find on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1044293881. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile reading website. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.